How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
Eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital.
That's difficult to answer.
is the end. I'm burning in the dystopian. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the dystopian. This is the final genocide. What have we done to the world? What have we done to the world? I'm burning in the dystopian. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the dystopian. This is the final
What up, everyone? What up? Happy Thursday. I was about to say Tuesday, but it's not Tuesday, is it? It's Thursday, as it turns out. Hey, listen, we were going to do Counter-Revolutionary Book Club today, and I was actually all excited because I actually started reading again Queer Ultraviolence last night, and I was going to switch over from doing Queering Anarchism to Queer Ultraviolence, which Queer Ultraviolence is like an insane book. Looking back, I don't know why I didn't make this one of the first things we read in the Counter-Revolutionary Book Club. That was a gross oversight on my part, and I read some of it on a Twitter space last night, and it was crazy. And I was like, we're going to do a good, long stream today where we're going to read Queer Ultraviolence, and it's going to be great. And it was supposed to be one of those streams that like no one comes to because it was so wonky and so kind of in the weeds. But like, I really can't imagine, like, there's nothing I would actually rather do right now than just sit around and have Queer Ultraviolence be read to me through the computer. But no. I never get what I want. I never get my way. I never get to do the things I want to do. Everything hates me. The universe hates me. And instead, we have to deal with a shooter in Washington, D.C., who was, for a brief period, I think, a member of the Party for Socialism and Liberation. And of course, we are intimately familiar with the Party for Socialism and Liberation on this channel. We have covered the Party for Socialism and Liberation more than I'm pretty sure pretty much any other people on the internet. And the Party for Socialism and Liberation is a group that we've been covering for, literally like 3 years. They ran presidential candidates last year. They're intimately involved in all of the college encampments. They were when you heard about outside agitators, they were the outside agitators. We have them on video from years ago talking about how they're going to stage some sort of pre-revolutionary crisis. We have them on video talking about how they want to get rid of all the prison systems and replace them with gulags and things like that. We've got some great clips from the Party of Socialism and Liberation over the years. And so when I heard that this DC shooter last night, who is a revolutionary socialist, he's obviously part of the Free Palestine movement, and I don't think he was a Johnny-come-lately to the Free Palestine movement. I think he's been involved in the Free Palestine movement for a long time because his manifesto said he was involved for like 11 years. So this is not a Johnny-come-lately post-October 7th involvement in the Free Palestine movement, which is really what a lot of the radical revolutionary far left is. They're people that kind of latched on to Free Palestine, Free Palestine, Free Palestine, not because they had any special personal affinity towards Palestine, but because it became, over the last couple of years, up until when Trump got elected again, it became the issue to try to use to recruit and radicalize more people to the far left. And so the left will use whatever they have to, and there are a lot of people that became Free Palestine, Free Palestine, Free Palestine activists that had, quite frankly, didn't really care about it beforehand, but it's a useful issue for them to use for their cause. There are also true believers that were always Free Palestine activists, that because the Free Palestine movement is a very real thing, it's been around for a long, 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 long time. And I'm pretty sure the shooter that we saw last night in DC was one of those people. I think he's a radical revolutionary socialist. Don't get it twisted. But I think he's also just one of those legitimate Free Palestine people. And so, of course, today we're hearing anti-Semitism, 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 anti-Semitism. Everything is anti-Semitism, even though we know, because we've been following these people for so long, because we listen to their speeches, because we listen to their trainings, because we actually read the things that they write, we know that it was never about anti-Semitism and it was never about Jew hate. They don't like what's going on in the Middle East, and they don't like Israel because they believe that Israel are the settler colonists, the bourgeois capitalist oppressors that stole the land from the indigenous Palestinians and privatized it under the oppressive force of capitalism. That is why they don't like Israel. It has nothing to do with them being Jewish. It's the same reason they don't like America. And you're seeing it today. You're seeing that this gunman that killed these two people outside of the Jewish Museum last night, you're seeing on his Twitter feed, he's saying he doesn't like America either. America with the KKK spelling. That's because they also believe that America are the settler colonists that came to the land and stole the land from the indigenous people and privatized it under the oppressive force of capitalism. The problem that they have with Israel is exactly the same problem they have with America. It's no different. And it has nothing to do with Jewish nothing. And it has nothing to do with Islamic nothing. And it has nothing to do with any sort of Holocaust or any sort of these things that all of these people are saying it does. Now, any death is a tragedy. I think we can all agree on that. I think we can all agree that, no, should these two people have been shot? No, obviously not. It's horrible. It's horrific. They have families. They have friends. You know, these are human beings too. We don't wish violence on anyone. We downright condemn all violence on this channel on all sides. But, you know, if you really want to honor the deaths of people, if you actually really care about the deaths of people and why they died, and you want to make this big show of like, they were young people about to get engaged and they had their whole lives in front of them, which is all true, by the way. But if you actually want to honor these people, tell the truth about why they died. Tell the truth. Because there is a truth. And then there is the fake narrative that is being shilled online about this being an anti-Semitic, Jew-hating terrorist attack. It wasn't. It wasn't. It was a radical revolutionary leftist who has been part of the Free Palestine movement for a long time, who literally believes that the settler colonists, Israel, are engaging in acts of repressive violence in order to oppress an indigenous population. And he believes, because they're literally engaging in acts of violence, that violence is justified in return. Now, people might say, Karlyn, this is nitpicking at the details. He still believes in violence. Yeah, he does. Yeah. People might say, well, you know, he's still shooting and killing people and that's not good. Yeah, true. Very true. But we need to be honest about why this is happening. And it's not because he hated Jewish people, and it's not because he's an anti-Semite. And the reason that we need to be honest about this is I think we're only going to see more and more and more and more and more violence coming out of the left. I think that it is inevitable. One of the things that he referenced in his manifesto, and listen, I read his manifesto earlier today, If you guys want to hear me read the entire manifesto, you can head over to the Substack and click on that very awkward looking picture of my eyes because it zooms in on my phone. But if I put my mouse over, you'll see this is just me having a certain like orientation on my phone. That's why you get a creepy look in my eyes. I swear to God, it's just a live stream. But in this live stream, I read the entire manifesto. I break it down. I tell you why he did what he did. And people might say, well, can we really trust the manifesto? Well, this is the last thing the guy wrote before he committed a heinous act for which he knew he was going to get caught, for which he was making a political statement. He literally said, you know what? Hang on. We're doing it live. I've got the manifesto on the screen right now. He literally referenced Aaron Bushnell in the manifesto. Aaron Bushnell and others sacrificed themselves in hopes of stopping the massacre, and the state works to make us feel their sacrifice was made in vain, that there is no hope for escalating in Gaza, and no point in bringing the war home. We can't let them succeed. Their sacrifices were not made in vain. He literally mentioned Aaron Bushnell in his manifesto. Aaron Bushnell is was the soldier that set himself on fire outside of the Israeli embassy. I think it was last year, wasn't it? What do they call this? They call it revolutionary suicide. This is something that, you know, if you're talking about revolutionary suicide, you're talking about like Jim Jones and the People's Temple and all that sort of stuff. That was revolutionary suicide too. Revolutionary suicide is a thing on the left. Now, of course, this gunman in DC, this gunman didn't kill himself. He didn't get killed. He's still very much alive and well. But they view this as an act of martyrdom. They view this as a valorous act to sacrifice oneself to bring attention to the greater cause of human oppression, human suffering, human violence. You don't have to agree with their perspective in the world, but they're doing these things for a reason. And I think we're only going to see more of these people. There's been, 3 now in the last year? You had Aaron Bushnell. You had that Luigi guy who shot the healthcare CEO. Or the insurance company CEO. And now you got this guy who's shooting people walking out of the Jewish museum for the purpose of making a political statement, free Palestine, free Palestine, free Palestine. There is no reason to lie about why he's doing this, except if you're trying to shill a political narrative. And the why is important because if you want to be able to predict what other people are going to do, what the left is going to do, how many other people they're going to try to kill, because I don't think we've seen the last of this, then we need to understand why it's happening, and we need to understand what these groups actually believe. And anyone talking about Jew-hating or anti-Semitism is unhinged from what these groups actually believe. Anyone talking about Islamist or jihadi is completely misrepresenting what's going on here. And it's downright irresponsible. The reason that conservatives are so misinformed about what's going on with the left is because their influencers lie to them all the time, completely irresponsibly, to shill a politically approved narrative. Is it a tragedy that 2 people are dead? Yes. Is it an absurd reason for gunning 2 people down because you want to bring attention to this bigger problem that you see in the Middle East of this oppressor versus oppressed narrative, and you like as if killing these 2 people is going to have any impact on this at all, as though this is going to be viewed positively by the general public, but that's not the purpose of it. That's not the purpose of it. Yeah, I agree with this, Kristen. X has been, I haven't even been able to be on it for most of the day. Thank God. I had meetings. I had other stuff I had to do. But the little bit I did see, I was just like, none of you effing get it. None of you get it at all. So I'm not going to break down the whole manifesto again. I already did that. You can find the video on my Substack. You can find the video on my YouTube channel. I uploaded it to Twitter too. It's a whole 45-minute rant breaking down what the left believes when it comes to the Israel-Palestine conflict, how they see the situation. It has more information about the Party for Socialism and Liberation. We're going to be doing a deep dive into them today. And it's going to have the truth as I see it, which is that this is an act of a revolutionary socialist who is engaging in this extreme act in order to advance the socialist cause and to radicalize more people to what they're doing. So that's my position. You can find out more on the Substack. And while you're over there, make sure you subscribe to the Substack. I post a ton of free content over there. I do live streams very regularly that are exclusive Substack live streams where I download quick hits of information about what's going on, things I'm thinking about, things I think you need to understand about the left. I've been having a lot of fun doing live streams over on the Substack. I think many of you are now catching on, and you have your Substack app. Download it on your phone so you get notified when I go live for a live stream. You can pull your phone out and you can participate in the chat and you can ask questions and stuff like that. And then those live streams get uploaded to the Decode the Left podcast, which if you click on the podcast link in the Substack, you get to the Decode the Left podcast. The Decode the Left podcast is also available on Apple and Spotify and where all major podcasting platforms are. I've been kind of making it a habit lately that I'm kind of turning the podcast into just an archive of my live streams on Substack, just talking about different things I think you guys need to know. I think it's actually working out well. People are getting more podcast content. The live streams are like working out on Substack. And so I think it's actually working out well. It's a much more efficient way for me to produce content rather than doing kind of like a formalized like recording where I have to go in and edit stuff and do all this stuff. Efficiency is the name of the game sometimes. And honestly, I do my best thinking when I'm live on the internet. Anyway, I have my greatest revelations when I'm live on the internet. So why not just do it all live and just get it over with? So you can find out more about that on my Substack. And if you guys appreciate the work I'm doing, make sure you're funding it because I am 100% funded by people like you. I'm an independent journalist and researcher. And this is what I do, guys. I spend time tracking the far left, breaking down what the far left is doing, watching the far left, teaching you guys about the far left. We work together to do research projects together sometimes. So we have the community people involved. And this is for people who really want to understand at a very deep level what is going on in our world, who is driving all of this crazy stuff. And I am 100% funded by people just like you. People who take a personal vested interest in making sure this information is out there so that we can teach as many people as possible what is going on in the world. And so if you feel like supporting the work I'm doing, please head over to the Substack, sign up as a member for $8 a month, $80 a year. You get a variety of perks when you sign up as a member, to include access to my supporter Discord, to include access to private unrecorded Zoom calls with me. We do one every single week on Mondays, to include merchandise discounts, to include supporter perks, to include spy stream access where we go inside live leftist trainings and you guys can see me actually infiltrate a leftist meeting in real time. All that and more becomes available to you when you support my work on Substack, and I really, really appreciate it. Another way to support my work is by sending in a super chat if you feel so inclined. Thank you, Kazmar, for the super chat. I really, really do appreciate it. All right, so what are we watching today then? Well, I thought today, just because of the link with the Party for Socialism and Liberation. And again, I'm actually inclined to believe the Party for Socialism and Liberation because they tweeted this out this morning. We reject any attempt to associate the PSL with the DC shooting. Elias Rodriguez is not a member of the PSL. He had a brief association with one branch of the PSL that ended in 2017. We know of no contact with him in over 7 years. We have had nothing to do with this shooting and do not support it. I'm actually inclined to believe them because, again, like the PSL is an extremely leftist organization. And it's one of those things where, like, I don't think they'd actually be upset if one of their members did this. But I also think they're not going to take responsibility if it's not one of their members. You know what I'm saying? I just think they wouldn't have said anything if it was actually one of their members. I think they just would have kept quiet because even if you look at the PSL's Twitter feed, they're just kind of going back to like business as usual. They're posting videos of different protests their groups are doing. And look, they're in Louisiana. They're literally in Louisiana right now. Literally in Louisiana right effing now. Because Mahmoud Khalil is being held in Louisiana. And the Party for Socialism and Liberation is posting about it on their Twitter feed right now. So I think that if he had been involved, they kind of just would have ignored it and just gone about business as usual. So I'm inclined to believe them on that. But I also think it's worth doing a deep dive into them. And I think I actually found a really compelling video that I think might give us some good information. So I found a video that is on this random dude's YouTube channel. And it's called Socialism 101, Party for Socialism and Liberation. And essentially, this is a presentation, it looks like, by a local chapter of the PSL out in Oregon. So you know it's going to be extremely leftist because it's in Oregon, right? And it looks like what's happened is several members of the PSL in Oregon are presenting to like a college class or something like that, telling them what they believe. And this is a relatively new video. This is only 6 months old. So this is from November 2024. So I thought we could watch this and we could hear directly from the Party for Socialism and Liberation members what they believe. And that way we don't have to make guesses. We can just do a deep dive into the content and we can hear what they have to say. Now, this is not the same branch as the one that the DC shooter was involved in. He was involved in the Chicago branch, but the PSL is a highly organized machine. They might be decentralized, but they're not as decentralized as a lot of these leftist organizations. And so I have no problem believing that what the PSL in Oregon believes is exactly the same thing as what the PSL in Chicago believes, or extremely close. So I thought we'd watch this video and we talk about it. And that is what we're going to do on the show today. And we're not even going to stand on circumstance. I just want to get started. 2-hour presentation, lot to get through. If you guys have never watched Socialism with me before, welcome. Welcome to watching Socialism. If you feel overwhelmed with the language that you hear when we are watching Socialism, please make sure you ask questions in the chat. This is supposed to be a learning and a research stream, okay? And so if you have questions, if you're not sure what's being said, please just ask the question in the chat. There are no dumb questions. The purpose of this is to learn. We were all new at this at one point in our socialist researcher journey. And the learning curve might be bigger than you might think it is. If all you've ever seen of socialism is clickbait content on YouTube or Twitter or any of these things, watching actual socialists might be a little bit overwhelming for you, but we're all here to help you and we want you to learn, because that is the purpose of doing this, is to make sure as many people as possible actually hinge into reality with what is going on so that we can all be better for it. Okay? So we're going to get started watching this video. And please mount the like button for me if you would be so kind. Liking the video lets YouTube know to recommend my content to more people. I stream Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. We do Socialism Saturday on Saturdays at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And so I hope you'll be able to join us for future streams. I stream on YouTube, X, and Rumble almost every single day of the week. And we're almost always doing deep dives into the far left, just like this, because no one else is doing it. So I'll do it. Fine, I'll do it. All right, let's get started. Let's see what they had to say. And the sound for this might not be great, but we're just gonna have to deal with that. All right, we're gonna do our best.
We have a fight on our hands. This was never about Trump or Harris.
From the day we started this campaign, we said we're up against a system.
A system where politicians answer to the lobbyists, not their voters.
A system that presents two options, but for all intents and purposes, represents a single billionaire agenda.
But don't take it from me, Claudia, the socialist. Take it from the capitalist, the CEO of BlackRock.
Larry Fink just declared, "I'm tired of hearing this is the biggest election in your lifetime. The reality is, over time, it doesn't matter."
BlackRock manages 11.5 trillion in assets. That's 40% of the whole country's GDP. He knows he has nothing to fear, either Democrats or Republicans in charge. Right now, nearly 2/3 of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck in the wealthiest country in the world. The leading cause of bankruptcy in America is medical debt. Test scores in America are hitting the lowest levels in decades because of the gutting of public education.
Americans now face record levels of drug use and suicide. Towns and cities have been hollowed out, yet the only thing we're ever told is that our choice is between these two parties, the very people who have created and managed this social crisis.
They're running out of ammunition in Israel. We have to help our friends to keep the war over there from coming here.
It was a bipartisan Congress that sent over $200 billion to Ukraine and Israel to fight proxy wars and live stream genocides.
It's a bipartisan Congress that spends $1.5 trillion a year on war. We just watched an election where two major parties fought over who will give more to the Pentagon.
It proves that this is not a Democrat issue. It is not a Republican issue. Both parties see maintaining a global military empire as more important than meeting the most basic needs of their voters.
So if you're feeling a little confused right now, you're watching the presidential and the vice presidential candidate for the Party of Socialism and Liberation in 2024. This is Claudia Dela Cruz, and the VP, her name is Karina. I forget Karina's last name. But basically, these two women spent like 2 years leading up to the 2024 election touring all over the country to college campuses to talk about socialism and that sort of stuff. As a reminder, they're not running presidential candidates because they think they're going to win some sort of presidential election. They're under no illusions about they're not going to win, right? But that's not the point. The point is to use it as a platform to spread their message, to get more people to join their party, to get more people to join their cause, and that sort of thing. So that's why you're seeing them talking about this. You'll also notice they're saying the Democrats are no different than the Republicans. These are socialists. They're not Democrats. No, they didn't vote for Kamala Harris. No, they didn't vote for Joe Biden. They weren't going to vote for Joe Biden. They hated Kamala Harris. They hated Joe Biden. They were very, very clear about this. The Party for Socialism and Liberation got a bunch of votes in the 2024 election. And they were on the ballot, I think, in like 19 states. They had write-in campaigns in many other states. There were only a couple states where like they weren't really that active. And guess what? They were the blue states. It was the fucking blue states where they weren't that active, which is ironic if you think that Democrats and socialists are the same thing. But that's what we're watching here. And so that's why you're seeing that video. And I also want people to note that this video was shot after the election. So all of this talk is happening after Donald Trump had already won the 2024 election. So this was very much like in the kind of like early stages of how do we move forward into this new era of Trump.
I will always stand up for Israel's right to defend itself, and I will always ensure Israel has the ability to defend itself.
Over the last year, we've watched how undemocratic the capitalist agenda really is.
We saw the monopolization of the media, the consolidation of power in the hands of big tech, corporate control over our food, water, land, energy, banks buying up all of the housing in this country, big pharma, the military-industrial complex, literally writing our laws.
We live in a corporate dictatorship with two parties. And that's why they're so afraid of us and other third-party campaigns. They tell us that running a third party is pointless.
And then they tried to block us at every turn. They kept us out of the debates. They removed us from the ballot in some states where we collected enough signatures. And in Georgia, they put us on the ballot, but the Democrats sued so that people who vote for us won't have their votes counted.
The mask is coming off. It's no wonder nearly 2/3 of...
So you guys hear that? It was the Democrats that took them off the ballot. So don't tell me that Democrats and socialists are the same thing at all.
Americans want third-party options. Congress approval rating is currently 16%. Their legitimacy is hanging on by a thread. That's why they see us as a threat. That's why they work so hard to convince people that there's no alternative.
The corporate media feeds us this narrative that the country is divided between red and blue, between Democrat and Republican. But what this election has made clear for all of us is that it's not about red or blue. The question is billionaires or the planet?
The stock market or the future of our children? Global war or one common human family?
People are looking for a fight back. People are starting to realize that working people of all nationalities have more in common with each other, common interests, than we do with the billionaires. That the billionaires are the real enemy. That they are the ones who are pitting us against each other, telling us to hate immigrants, poor people, China, Russia, whoever scapegoat they find next.
Wall Street has their project to generate super profits off your backs no matter what. They have a plan to keep rising the cost of rent, of food, of gas, and healthcare.
They have a plan to use AI for massive job destruction to bust unions, instead of harnessing that technology to solve social problems. They have no plan for how to mitigate the climate catastrophe.
But they do have a plan to prepare the population for great power conflicts and comprehensive war. This is a nice way of masking the most insane idea you can imagine. A direct war with China, World War III. And guess who will be signed up to fight in that?
People know that neither party is serving them, and they're ready for a fighting alternative. And that's why the Vote Socialist campaign got on the ballot in 19 states, with 23 states more write-in status, plus Washington, D.C. 100% fueled by volunteers. We collected tens of thousands of signatures for our petition. We had thousands of people sign up to volunteer, and we
Can I just note this? Hey, thanks, Gothic. I appreciate the super sticker. People underestimate the amount of resources and manpower that a ballot access campaign actually requires. And I've been involved in a ballot access campaign when I was doing stuff with like libertarians in New Hampshire. A ballot access campaign sucks. It sucks. You have to like go and stand outside supermarkets and ask people to sign your petition to allow the third party to be on the ballot. Most people don't want to do it. It's like they don't care. And it's like, or they're one of the two parties. So of course they're not going to help you out. You have to get thousands of signatures. It takes months of sending people out like every day to get these signatures. Also, there are people who make livings during election seasons getting like, you know, $10 a $5 a signature, $10 a signature, whatever, just going around collecting these signatures so that you can actually get people on the ballot. And it's just like, the fact that the Party for Socialism and Liberation was able to mount a ballot access campaign that got them on the ballot in 19 states, you might poo-poo that and say, oh, well, that's not that big a deal. It actually is a big deal. It actually is. That is an insane amount of manpower. That is an insane amount of volunteering. And that tells you just how organized these people are. And if you don't believe me, then go for the midterms, go to your local third party and get involved in a ballot access campaign in your state. And you'll see very, very, very quickly how much of a giant pain in the ass clusterfuck it actually is to get people to actually volunteer to do this, to get people to turn in their stuff, to organize all of it across the state. It is a massive job. And so the fact that they were able to do this is a testament to how organized they are, how many people they have involved in their party, how together and focused they are in terms of goal orientation, and that should terrify everyone.
We engage with an untold number more.
Our goal has been to put socialism on the map everywhere, not just in the big cities, not just in the swing states, but everywhere. And we've done that in a way that hasn't been seen in decades. This was only possible because of working class people.
We haven't been funded by billionaires. This has been a real movement.
So I just want to say thank you to everyone who has helped in any way, everyone who donated, and everyone who votes socialist.
As Dr. Martin Luther King said, capitalism has outlived its usefulness. We believe that a government of working class people would do a better job.
Like we said when we launched this campaign is an invitation to get organized and join struggle.
The ruling class has their plans for 2025. So what is our plan?
We're not going to hide in our houses. We're going to fight back.
We're going to keep getting organized and hope that you'll join us. Get involved with the PSL, build the socialist movement that we need.
I wonder if it's at all possible to like squeeze the chairs together a little bit more. Over so we can fit some more people.
Where is this? They have the ABCs on the wall. They're in like an elementary school classroom or something.
Never how much to expect.
Yeah, it's hard to know. This is exciting.
Anyone we can fit in.
Yeah, maybe no. The angle is a great idea. Yeah.
Oh, angle.
Angle is a great. That's a great move. Great advancement. This is what we need. Working class people solve problems.
Look at this.
We just like tripled our capacity. Wow.
This is the.
Maybe let's do like.
Kelly, are you doing a slideshow?
Yeah, there we go.
Great.
We can put more chairs. I tried about every door.
Oh, really? Except for the right one.
We could put some more.
Process of elimination.
Let's get some more.
There's where one door is open too.
Somebody came to let us in.
Okay.
Okay, we're just getting started.
We definitely need more chairs.
We need more chairs. Okay.
That's pretty amazing.
Well, thank you everybody for coming. Welcome. So glad you could all make it. We're just going to try to, just get the last few people settled in, and then we'll just get started. Run right in.
Looking for more chairs?
I think they're looking for more chairs.
We are obtaining more chairs.
Yeah.
This is a great problem to have.
I guess so. And
And
meanwhile,
we
can just get
We
started.
can get started.
Yeah.
We can stand. I can stand.
Okay, cool. Well, welcome everyone to our event, which we called Socialism 101, just for fun. And we hope it was an invitation for y'all to come and hang out with us for a little bit. US is the Party for Socialism and Liberation, who, our candidates for president and vice president, Claudia de la Cruz and Karina Garcia, sort of the source of this video and has been a source of a lot of our outreach for the last few months. We've been paying pretty close attention to the election for that reason, and I wonder if I could get a show of hands, if you're willing, of who actually voted for Claudia and Karina in this election. Woo! I love that. Nice. So the PSL is a party that was founded about 20 years ago, coming out of the Iraq War movement.
It makes sense.
Has been kind of building the movement for socialism in the U.S., trying to rebuild it after some ebbs and flows over the last century or so, for the last 20 years, and certainly being in the anti-war movement is one of the central components of our party. The Vote Socialist 2024 campaign put the genocide in Palestine as one of the highest priorities, and the cutting of funding to the Pentagon, and cutting the funding for war and reinvesting in domestic needs as like one of the top priorities.
I just want to note too that you heard like the Party for Socialism and Liberation was founded basically in response to the war in Iraq. There was a lot of anti-war protesting going on at that time. That makes a ton of sense to me. Anti-war has always been one of their very big things. The point I want to make though is if the Party for Socialism and Liberation and the left and the radical revolutionary left is really as anti-Semitic as the right says it is, then we should be hearing probably quite a bit in this presentation about how much they hate Jews, about how much they support Islam, about things that would provide some sort of evidence or confirmation for the fact that they're anti-Semitic pro-jihadists. Okay, so I just want to put that out there. It's important that we listen for what they're saying. It's also important that we listen for what they're not saying. And so just pay attention to how much stuff comes up in this talk that you think is actually anti-Semitic.
Of the campaign, and in doing that, it was the most successful socialist campaign for president in decades. So the votes are still being counted, so we don't know exactly, but Eugene Debs was getting around 1 million votes in the 1920s. We didn't get that, but it's like we're working on it, and we're quite proud of the work that we did. That said, if Oregon, the state of Oregon, despite having write-in status.
It is completely false and inaccurate to say that these are Zionists. These are not Zionists in any way, so please stop. It is actually not. You're just making shit up, and if you continue to do that, you'll be put in a timeout, and if you continue to do that after your timeout is over, you'll be removed. We hinge into reality here. There's absolutely no evidence that 90% of these people are Zionists because I say so because of my feelings. There is no fucking evidence. No, bitch. No. We don't Google. We look at primary source video. If you are not smart enough to understand what you are watching, then you are not smart enough for us to listen to. Okay, we're going away now. Goodbye. Enjoy your time out. Go away. No.
In Oregon, the state of Oregon is not going to tally our votes. They're not actually going to tell us how many votes that Claudia and Karina got. which was shocking to me when I called the Secretary of State this week, and I was like, when are you publishing this? And they said, we're not. So it turns out that, like, yeah, the barriers are, one, getting on the ballot. You need like 24,000 signatures in Oregon compared to about 1,000 in Washington. And then, you know, if you don't get that and you get the write-in status, they still won't tell you how many people agree with you. But it's a lot, as you can see. Let's take this as a random sample of the thing, I would say. And it's about 40%, wasn't it? Yeah, pretty good. So,
would they tell us if she was actually on the ballot?
if she was on the ballot, they counted it.
Okay.
And if the total number of write-in votes had been greater than the number of votes that Kamala Harris earned, they would have tallied them. There were about 15,000 total write-ins, and anyway.
And they're not available through the counties?
The counties, they won't count them. They're not allowed to count them. They're not allowed to tally them. Anyway. Yep. But that said, you know, we are getting a lot of votes in from a lot of the states where we had write-in status that do tally them. And so we'll have a vote total at some point, and if you're on our mailing list, I'm sure we'll advertise that when it's ready. The local branch of the PSL, so the PSL is a national organization. It's organized in branches around the country in different cities, and the Eugene branch was founded in 2023 in the spring. This was before October 7th, 2023. And so there were a lot of events that we had done, you know, leading up to October 7th that were not related to Palestine. And then that sort of took over a lot of our work, I would say, until the campaign took over a lot of our work and so on. But I was just gonna read through quickly the list of work that we've done in the last year, just to give you a sense of what it is that we accomplished. I was gonna do it real fast, because then it would be impressive how much it was, you know, and if I stopped and like explained what each thing is, you'd be like, well, that's not much. But that's not what I'm doing. So the first event was a public forum in recognition of International Working Women's Day and the 20th anniversary of the invasion of Iraq. This was in spring 2023. Around Palestine, we've participated in the Springfield Eugene Anti-Imperialist Coalition, which formed around October 7th. We had a very successful educational forum on Palestine. We brought in Richard Becker, who's a party member and also the author of one of the books on the table on Palestine. He did a talk with us about his book. We did a book study group of that book. We organized a talk with Michelle Shahade. We did that with JVP, the local branch. Michelle Shahade is one of the LA 8 who was like arrested.
What's JVP? Does anyone know? He just said, we organized an event with JVP. Does anyone know what JVP is? Do 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 do. Yay! JVP is Jewish Voice for Peace. Along with the Party for Socialism and Liberation, Jewish Voice for Peace is one of the main groups that has been involved in the pro-Palestine protests. I bring this up because it seems implausible to me that if they're working so closely with Jewish Voice for Peace, it seems implausible to me that these people would actually be anti-Semitic, because Jewish Voice for Peace is an entirely Jewish group. They're just not Zionists. So they are Jewish, they just don't support Israel. And that is true of a lot of people involved on the left. So again, I bring this up because we need to differentiate here. Are we actually making the argument that it is anti-Semitic to not support Israel, which is a foreign power? I don't think that's an argument that we should make. I don't think that's an argument we should accept. If you're willing to work with Jewish people and you generally don't actually care if someone is Jewish, then you're not anti-Semitic.
Around, I don't know.
Like, there are actual anti-Semites on the internet. I don't know if people know this. There are actual anti-Semites on the internet. There are actual neo-Nazis on the internet. There are people on the internet. There are Twitter spaces all the time that will not allow you to speak in the space if you are non-white. Okay? So there are actual anti-Semites, and I promise you, those actual anti-Semites are not working with Jewish Voice for Peace, even if they happen to both agree that they don't like Israel.
The 90s, for organizing around Palestine and threatened with deportation and had a 20-year legal case that he ended up winning. They ended up winning, but 20 years of his life invested in that. He came to talk to us about that. We did a screening of Gaza Fights for Freedom and a Q&A with the director, Abby Martin, which was great, at the Art House Theater. We did a pride rally against pinkwashing with a lot of other groups, who I won't name. We supported the UO encampment for Palestine. We held the 1 year of genocide, 1 year of resistance rally on October 5th. We held a no votes for genocide rally right before the election on November 7th. And we exercised political influence in a lot of the other groups that our members participate in, like founding UO Faculty and Staff for Justice in Palestine, participating in the student encampment, organizing within the GTFF and the United Academics at the University of Oregon. Around the election, we had a really great ice cream social. There were a bunch of kids at the park. They came and took all our ice cream. We didn't really, they didn't want to hear about the campaign for some reason, but that was fine. Still, it was a good idea, and my kid got a bunch of ice cream. We've been canvassing at Saturday Market. They threw us out at some point. That was super sad. We have several interviews up on KPW on Whole Community News, if you're not familiar with that publication, like the local publication, local news. That's pretty great. We held a study group of our magazine, Breaking the Chains. Breaking the Chains is our socialist feminist magazine. They get published twice yearly, I think. And
Breaking the
Chains. Magazine, and there was an election.
I had no idea they had a magazine.
Copy that we did. And we did certain other things, participated in the May Day Coalition, the People's Fall Fest Coalition, we tabled at Eugene Pride, and lately we've been yelling at the owners of Bigfoot, yelling at the owners of Franz, and supporting striking workers generally and other local labor actions. So yeah, it's been about 1.5 years, a little bit more, and we have a few comrades here. I would say that our goal is like, with our commitment to punch above our weight, and I feel like this list more or less says, so far we did okay. So the program for today is really not to talk about the PSL, but to talk about socialism, certainly our perspective about it, and capitalism, which is often like also unclear sometimes what people mean when they say that. So we kind of want to start with a solid understanding of what we mean by that.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. That sounds great.
You know, the purpose of the program is certainly education, certainly recruitment. We hope you like us and want to hang out in some capacity, either volunteering or supporting financially or joining is great. So that is an explicit purpose. And, you know, fundraising would be great too. If you have money, then feel free to give some to us. That's fine. We like that. These baby carrots aren't free. So, and so I'll just introduce some of the comrades who are going to be speaking. This is Kaylee.
Hi.
And Cameron, and Sam, and Ian is somewhere. Right. All right. And those are the members who are here today and who are going to be like presenting different things at different times.
Okay, so one of the reasons I wanted to watch this, and I think we're all going to find this very, very interesting, is what he just said is we're going to hear their perspective on socialism. The PSL are largely Stalinists. They're more Stalinist leaning than most of the activists we listen to. So I want to make sure people keep this in mind, because this is not the Revolutionary Communists of America. This is not the Firebrand Collective. This is not even, I don't even recall seeing these guys at the Socialism Conference with like the whole Haymarket Books crowd or any of that. So most socialist activists in the United States are Marxist-Leninists. Marxist-Leninists don't like Stalinists, and they have different philosophies about things. There's also probably going to be a lot of overlap between them. I just want to make sure people know that like, we're getting their version of socialism, which may or may not align with like other groups we watch, because the left is not really a monolith. They do disagree on some things. And so just keep that in mind as we're watching. But I like the idea of getting kind of just like their overall perspective on it. Play.
And we hope it turns out, you know, I hope it's good. We'll see. So, any questions before we dive in? Okay, all questions will be answered. So, first thing I have here is to like, just break out a little bit, talk to each other a little bit about a couple of things, and then maybe come and report back in a couple minutes. So one is to just like meet each other. Another one of the purposes, meeting other people who are here. Maybe think about some questions that you're hoping will be discussed. Think about some other things you're hoping to accomplish or learn, and especially what brought you here today. You know, you had a lot of things you could have done today, but you came here instead. So what is like the thing or things that actually brought you to this event? So maybe, you know, gather up into some little groups and meet someone new, at least one new person
obviously
in
we
these
aren't
groups if
gonna
possible.
listen to this.
And we'll come back in like 5 minutes to...
Going there.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, let's see.
Slowly.
They edit that.
Out someone in your group.
Oh, they're doing a report back. Okay.
Okay. I know there were things you wanted to say and didn't get to, but that's fine. Does anybody want to maybe volunteer some of the things that are either questions you're hoping to be addressed or what brought you here today? Mostly for yourself if you had time to think about it now, but if you want to out someone in your group, that's fine. I don't mind.
He said just socializing with progressive people.
Okay, awesome. Hopefully we do that.
Open my big mouth.
Oh.
What brought me here is a growing.
So I just want so that person just said, "Oh, we're gonna socialize with progressive people." Just listen to this. So, hang on.
That's fine. I don't mind.
He said just socializing with progressive people.
Socializing with progressive people is one of the reasons they're there, right? There are going to be people in this crowd that aren't necessarily radical revolutionary socialists. Because it's a weird thing, right? A lot of people on the left think they're farther left than they actually are because they don't realize how far the far left actually is to the left. But one of the things that groups like the Party for Socialism and Liberation have really been concerned about since the election of Donald Trump is what they're trying to do is pick off the liberals and the progressives and get them to stop supporting the Democratic Party and radicalize them more to the far left. So it doesn't surprise me at all that we're actually hearing like people saying, "Oh, I just want to socialize with more progressive types of people at an event like this," because it's like those are the people they're targeting to recruit. They're at a Socialism 101 event. This is to learn about socialism, to learn why this is a better option for them than supporting the Democrats. That's probably what the purpose of this whole presentation was. And so just keep in mind, presentations like this are probably going on all over the country and probably have been for several months of extremely far leftist organizations going into communities and just holding these, "Hey guys, do you think the Democratic Party sucks? Hey, we think the Democratic Party sucks too. Do you want to talk about how much the Democratic Party sucks together? We can all get together and talk about how much they suck and how our solution is better." And these are the little meetings that create groundswells. This is how stuff actually gets done in the real world. It doesn't get done by getting 1 million views on YouTube. It gets done by having these small meetings consistently over and over and over again all over the country, appealing to more and more people.
Okay, awesome. Hopefully we do that.
Open my big mouth. What brought me here is a growing discontent with it's one thing to like Eugene Debs in a historical standpoint. It's another thing to actually see change. I thought we were going slowly, very, very slowly, but in the right direction. Now I know that since 1981 we have been doing a U-turn, and it's pretty depressing. One thing I would like to see is more pragmatism. I heard a lot of idealism from what you said and from what she said, but I don't think third parties stand a chance in this country until we change the way we vote.
Okay.
And my two cents, I voted for Kamala Harris to avoid Trump, not because she was my desired candidate.
God, it's socialist, it's so
that's
progressive.
true of everybody in this room that didn't raise their hand.
Absolutely.
I voted green.
Yeah.
Okay, so I wasn't going there.
Thank you for that. Anybody else? Yes.
I think I'm here because I've been an academic pretty much all my life and in school a lot. And when George Floyd was killed and then Trump attacked Portland 4 years ago, I guess.
Trump attacked
I
Portland.
realized that was part of
a
larger system. And that was kind of a political awakening for me.
Can speak to that.
He woke
Yes,
up to class
thank you.
consciousness.
Anybody else? Ian?
Yeah, just talking about how it's very liberating, which is nice. That's our party name, Liberation. It's very liberating to interact with other people who believe the same, who believe in equality rather than, just scrolling through social media, finding whatever thing is negative. This is silver lining right here.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you were required to be here.
Yeah, I wanted to be
To tack onto that, that's a lot of what I was saying. Is it's fine to sit at home and read theory and all of this thought and process, but until you meet up with people and start having actual praxis and doing those things, being on a computer and being like, grrr, doesn't do anything. You need to get out and actually meet people and move forward with things and organize. And so I guess that's why I came.
Absolutely. Todd?
Well, I came because I'm angry, and anger isn't effective unless you have an effective strategy to accomplish something. But I don't know why, but I just became angry earlier in life, in my teens and 20s. And I hate authoritarianism. I was really rebellious. And so this has been a lifelong expression for me. And many of you will be here, this is 2024. Younger people will be doing what I'm doing in 2074, because once you know, you can't unknow stuff.
You're here.
By the way, I turned off the lens, but I'm aiming the microphone just to record the sounds, okay?
Okay. Yeah, thanks.
Why did you turn off the lens?
All right.
Says lame. No, it turns back on. I know it does.
I'm feeling super energized for some reason after the election. I thought I was going to be really depressed, but I actually feel like I want to get the fuck up and do something and get out.
Thank you for that not planted closing. Yeah, I think that I was surprised as well, I guess, for myself, that it was like, yeah, let's go. Let's go do this. But I don't have to talk about myself too much more, because there will be a lot of time for that. So our first section of the event, we're talking about the historical development of human society in like 20 minutes. It's gonna be so on point.
Yeah.
You're gonna learn about everything in the, okay. There's gonna be things we leave out, but the point is to understand what capitalism is, what we mean when we talk about socialism, and then engage with that for what it means, for what's the next thing to do. Like those people who are feeling like it's time to get up and do something, what is the next thing? And so we're gonna start with Cameron giving us a little bit of background on capitalism.
Yeah, Cameron, give us background on capitalism.
So, thank you all for coming. And before I get started with my section, I want to just briefly introduce myself. Hope to relate to you all a little bit. My name is Cameron Stringfield. She, her pronouns.
She, her.
You probably see me around a lot in Eugene at different protests and whatnot. I'm involved in the Springfield Eugene Anti-Imperialist Coalition. Been involved in communist parties for a long time. I was in one that's irrelevant now for about 3 years. Left it and joined the PSL that's established and does great work. And actually, like, you see the candidates that ran for presidency and got so many votes, like they're helping to lift the level of consciousness. But when I came into the communist movement,
But it's entirely likely that the party that they were involved in was something like the Communist Party USA. Communist Party USA is completely irrelevant on the left. It's why we don't actually talk about them. They still exist, but they really kind of there's a lot of problems there. So that's probably what they're talking about.
like it was difficult for a while. A lot of people just threw Marxist jargon at me, like all of these big terms and everything that when somebody's just trying to get introduced to this topic isn't really helpful. So I'm hoping that what we can do today is for anybody that's new to this or anybody that has this sort of theory already in their mind to help like actually formulate this knowledge for you and help you to understand these things. So feel free to sort of keep questions in your head and ask them towards the end of this. So what I'm going to be going over is sort of the history of class society briefly. Again, this is human history, and I have to scale it down to like 5 minutes, and then we're going to be talking about what capitalism is, and then I'll give it to the next person to talk about socialism. So, on class society, briefly, there is a Marx quote. I'm not going to use the full quote of it, but it's at the start of Communist Manifesto that basically says that history of all hitherto societies is class struggle. So this goes all the way back to basically the slavery systems of old during like the Roman Empire and the Greek Empire, going all the way back a couple thousand years with class societies. But human society was once classless. Humans have existed for about 2 million or so years. Don't quote me on that, but I know it's millions. And before class society, there was a system called primitive communalism, which was what most indigenous communities across the world had in place, where things were owned collectively. There was no surplus of production. So what we can see from that is that classes are not natural. It's not sort of an innate human greed that drives these things. For most of human history, for most of existing human society, we did not have class societies like we have now. So it's only been the past couple thousand years. So, and that's a relatively recent time frame if you think about how long humans have been around. I mean,
so what they're saying is there was a time before some people had significantly more stuff than others. And that time was an indigenous society, and this is why they venerate indigenous people. This is why they do land blessings and all that stuff. Hey, Donnie girl, thank you for all your hard work. That's okay, fat fingers. Donnie, I am the queen of the typo, so I appreciate the super chat. Thanks so much. Yeah, this is what Against the Gender Nightmare called primitive communism. Exactly.
obviously none of us have been around for 1,000 years, but in that thing, it's pretty brief. And these societies under primitive communalism also engaged in trade. So commerce and trade are not necessarily exclusive to class societies and capitalism either. So that's what I hope to answer as well when we talk about what capitalism is and try to separate that from that. So class society developed relatively recently, as I was saying, out of classless society in a struggle of how to distribute that surplus production. And so class societies had various forms. Like I was saying, there was, with like the Bronze Age, you got these sort of systems of slavery and antiquity where you had slave masters and then you had these slaves, and they weren't necessarily organized on strictly ethnic lines like we saw with chattel slavery in the United States, but it was still a slave system. This was sort of how you see a lot of media depicting like the ancient Egyptians, the Greeks, the Roman Empire, etc. And then you have feudalism, which I'll get into, which was a system where you had the kings and queens, this royalty, who had the power under that system. And then you had a lot of wealthy sort of like people that were amassing wealth that didn't have the power under feudalism for a long time. So, and of course, capitalism is its own
capitalism
class society, its own form. And there are forms within forms as well, like imperialism and the monopoly capitalism, even mercantilism to some extent, are all forms within forms of a class society. And so we're going to get to those briefly and touch upon them so that we can understand them better. But capitalism developed out of feudalism. And without getting into all the details of feudalism, because we're not exactly under kings and queens today, and it's not the most relevant thing, like I said, feudalism concentrated wealth in the hands of some small privileged classes, but not the power, and that was exclusive to the king and the royalty under feudalism. And the politically powerless wealthy were basically the grave diggers of feudalism. And as we got to around the 15, 16, 1700s, you started to see these wealthy people under feudalism revolting against feudalism through all these different revolutions that happened in Europe and even in North.
I'm loving all these $20 super chats, guys. You're keeping it. It's a generous super chat. You're keeping it simple. Thank you for your research work. Thank you, Houston. I appreciate it. Why don't we set a goal? Why don't we set a goal for once? Let's set, we're up to $60. Oh, $65 actually. Let's set a goal for today. Because I think we can meet it. I believe in you.
North America against sort of these feudal rule and the vestiges of feudalism, and then capitalism was birthed out of that. First is like mercantilism, which was like having trade overseas to sort of expand that reach and influence and extract resources from abroad, which is sort of where you see the policy of colonization coming into play, which is kind of an innate thing that capitalism has in its necessity to expand and continue to extract resources from the world.
Okay, so that's important what they just said. Colonization is capitalism's desire to expand and extract resources from the world. Okay, so let's relate this back to Israel and Palestine. If the left sees Israel and Palestine as the capitalist oppressor versus the oppressed proletarian indigenous, then what that means is that Israel are the settler colonists. That's what they call them, the settler colonists. Colonization is capitalism's desire to expand and extract resources of the world. Israel represents the expansion of capitalism to take the property from the indigenous people and privatize it in order to exploit them for resources. It's not because they're Jewish. It's because it has to do with the land, has to do with colonization. These are two very, very, very different problems. If you try to solve communism by, and this is ironic, okay, because, you know, the dissident right has their opinions on this as well. If you try to solve communism by calling them all anti-Semites and then solving the problem, the quote-unquote problem that you created of anti-Semitism, you're not going to be solving a problem that has anything to do with what they're actually doing. You might be doing something, you're doing busy work. What you're doing is you're doing busy work. You're doing the thing where when people clean the house, there's a mess in one room of the house and people clean it by picking up the mess in one room and moving the mess to another room. Well, I guess you cleaned that one room, but did you really clean up the mess? No, but you feel like you did something, right? You did busy work. That's what people are doing when they're saying that all of this is because of anti-Semitism. We're going to solve anti-Semitism. We're going to wipe the scourge of anti-Semitism. They're not being anti-Semitic. So you might be doing something, but you're not actually solving the problem. The term I'm looking for is busybodies, perhaps.
So I'll go into capitalism for a little while. So, like I said, with political power, the wealthy under feudalism developed a political economic system to support and expand their wealth and power, which was capitalism. But of course, what is capitalism?
Private property
ownership. The main features of capitalism are the private ownership of the means of production, which is private property. And private property is not your stuff. That's your personal property. It's not.
Winning, 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 winning. I win. Everyone else loses, except for people who always agreed with me. Capitalism is private property ownership. And what he's going to do, and yeah, I'm going to say what he's going to do is he's going to say, don't worry, we don't want to take your stuff. We don't want to take that. We're not talking about your personal property. We're talking about private property. What do they mean when they say private property? They mean your ability to own a home. They mean your ability to own land. They mean your ability to own an apartment that you rent out as a landlord. They mean your ability to own intellectual property. They mean your ability to own a private business, whether or not that private business is big or small. They mean your parental rights as a form of private property ownership, and they mean your individual liberties as a form of private property ownership. So he's about to go into this thing. Don't worry, we don't want to take your stuff. We're not taking your cat or your truck or your computer or your iPhone or anything like that. We don't care about that stuff. And they don't. They legitimately don't care about that stuff. But they're not going to tell you explicitly what private property means. They're going to be like, oh yeah, we just want to commandeer the factories. What factories? I'm not saying factories don't exist, but today's corporate world mostly isn't factories. We are not in the industrial era anymore. There's a lot of commerce that goes on in the world that doesn't require any factory at all. All right. So do they want to take the factories? Yeah, they do. But they do also want to take your ability to own a house, land. They want to take away your parental rights. All that stuff falls under private property. But let's just listen to this beautiful clip again.
But of course, what is capitalism? The main features of capitalism are the private ownership of the means of production, which is private property. And private property is not your stuff. That's your personal property. It's not your house and your things and your knickknacks and everything.
It is actually, he just lied right there. It is actually your house.
Socialists are not trying to take that from you.
You are trying to take people's houses.
Private property is ownership of the means of production. So the factories,
that's not true.
Railroads, the airlines, the farms, the stores, the banks, the distribution and communication apparatuses. These are all things that are private property.
You want to own the farms? What do you think farms are? It's a home for people. We don't want to take your homes. We just want to take your farms. Do you not understand that farmers live on their land, on their farm, and you want to commandeer their farm? See, that's lying. That's not being honest.
People owning this privately and not the workers themselves that actually produce this sort of surplus value. And with that, there's also private profit. As they take your surplus value from your labor, from you, that is their profit. That is what they're making in addition to what they had to spend to have that sort of business in the first place. So, and with that, there's this sanctification of the private property as sacred through a state apparatus which they control. And to touch on, I'll touch on the state in a second, and I'll pose a question to see some examples of that. But under this system of capitalism, expansion is continuous and endless for profit to grow. And of course, this sort of started out with mercantilism, but even under like capitalism going into imperialism, you have this continued search for more resources and more wealth in different parts of the world that ends up leading to more violent and brutal means to achieve that. And like I said, that drives colonization, that drives imperialist war. We saw that in the 1800s, as imperialism was forming, you had all of these different redivisions of the world, these conquests into different areas, whether it be conquering different parts of the Americas, or this scramble for Africa, or even all of these political entanglements ended up culminating in the First World War, where you had sort of an inter-imperialist conflict between all of these up-and-coming imperialist countries, the United States, France, Britain, the German Empire, the Russian Empire, Japanese. These are all forces that, because of their search for more wealth and more power overseas, ended up in conflict with each other.
If you're going to be in my chat, you're going to follow my rules. You had your time out. You've been given your one warning. If I see any other bullshit in my chat other than questions related to the presentation or questions related to what we're actually watching, you're going to be permanently banned.
And of course, with our own empire, the American empire, we saw that through, of course, the continued genocide of indigenous people within our borders, but also with like the annexations of Hawaii and Samoa in the 1898 and 1899, the Spanish-American War, where we had this sort of conquest of like Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands and the Philippines, which we then colonized and then did a genocide of throughout the early 1900s. And these, like the Banana Wars, which were like a whole lot of different interventions throughout Central America and the Caribbean throughout the 1900s and 1910s to basically secure profits for United Fruit Company and other corporations like Standard Oil, American Tobacco, sugar companies, etc. So you can see how this happens with our own empire, and you can even see it up to today with the kind of wars that we're doing overseas. Like for the last 20 years, there was the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan to extract their resources and to implement U.S. power in that region to protect our interests. But to talk just real briefly on the state is the instrument of the ruling class to protect private property and maintain their power.
Oh!
And the question that I wanted to...
That's a great quote. The state is the instrument of the ruling class to protect private property and maintain their power. What do they mean when they say the state? Pop quiz for the chat. When he says the state is the instrument of the ruling class to protect their private property and maintain their power, what do they mean when they say the state? Do 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 do. No, it's not capitalism. Capitalism is not the correct answer. No. Stop saying capitalism for everything you guys don't know the answer to. It really does annoy me. The state, guys. What does it mean when someone says the state? You guys are lucky I'm hacking up a lung right now. Some right answers are in the chat, but I want more right answers. What do people mean when they say the state? They mean the government. The government. The Constitution. The government. The U.S. government. Why did you all make this so difficult? When they say the state, they mean the government. The government. The government. Thank you. Now we're cooking with steam. All right, now we're cooking with steam. So, the government is the instrument that protects the private property of the ruling class and maintains their power. That's what they just said. Because socialists believe that the U.S. government is grounded in capitalism. The U.S. government is the enforcement mechanism for capitalism. The U.S. Constitution is based on capitalism. The point of the U.S. Constitution is to protect private property. So let's extrapolate that out. If socialists believe that the state, the Constitution, the government is the instrument for protecting private property and maintaining the power of the ruling class, then what is their goal? That's a question. If these people believe that the government, the Constitution, is designed to protect private property and maintain the status of the ruling class, as they've just said, then what are they actually trying to do? What is the ultimate goal of all of this? What is the point? What is the point? What are they trying to do? They're trying to overthrow the government. They're trying to get rid of the Constitution. When they say revolution, they mean the overthrow of the United States government. Okay? This is why it's important that we define specifically what words mean. And I swear to God, If any of you guys ever don't get the question again of like, what is the state? And you just say capitalism for it, no. We have got to start being very precise in our definitions. And please just stop saying capitalism to everything, because it's not accurate. And it really bothers me when you guys do this to get the right answer when it's not accurate, okay? No. They have different goals. Some want revolution. Not all are revolutionaries. No. No. Wrong. This is your ignorance about the different groups on the left. There are people on the left who are reformists. The Democratic Socialists of America are reformists. The Democratic Socialists of America, even though they want to work within the electoral system, still want to get rid of the federal government and still want a post-capitalist society. They're just going about it in a different way that is probably going to be ineffective. But we are watching currently the Party for Socialism and Liberation. The Party for Socialism and Liberation are revolutionary socialists. There is not a single person that we're seeing here today that doesn't believe in the violent overthrow of the government. So please, you are not here to teach us. You are here to learn. And your opinions on this, until you learn the basics, they don't mean a whole heck of a lot. And you're only preventing yourself from learning, but you're going, but I am right and you are wrong. No, you're not. No, you're not. You have not been around long enough. You have not learned. We will teach you, but you need to show some humility when you come here and understand, no, I didn't. No, I didn't ask for your opinion. You must be confused. When a teacher gives a pop quiz in a class, are they asking for your opinion? Are you going to get 100 just for showing up and saying, I think that you are wrong, teacher, for a reason X, Y, B, and C? No, you're going to get a fucking 0. You want to know why? It was a pop quiz. I wasn't asking for your opinion. I wasn't asking for your fucking feelings. I was asking what they mean by that. And your answer was completely incorrect. And now I am correcting your answer. You got a 0 on the quiz because you questioned me and you questioned what the knowledge that we were trying to impart to you instead of just being humble and listening to what was being said. Do you understand what you're doing here? You are in a classroom. I am the teacher. You are the student.
Power in that region to protect our interests. But to talk just real briefly on the state is the instrument of the ruling class to protect private property and maintain their power. And the question that I wanted to ask is, what do you think are some good examples of the state? If anybody wants to
I do. Oh,
raise their
good.
hands
What are
and
some
give
examples of the state?
Some answers.
Cops,
yes.
Cops.
Law enforcement is a perfect example of the state. They are not protecting you, no matter how much it says protect and serve. They are protecting private property. Which is why cops are going to be one of the first people that are called when private property is threatened by the working class. What's another good example?
Oh, I got to get that. That was a great clip. What's an example of the state? The cops. What is one of the number one things the left wants to do? Abolish the police. Defund the police. This is what the BLM riots were all about. This is what the George Floyd stuff was all about. They didn't give a flying fuck about George Floyd. They didn't give a flying fuck about black people. What they cared about was abolishing the police, defunding the police. That is what the protests were about. Why do they want to abolish the police and defund the police? Because they believe that the police are an arm of the state that only exist to enforce private property ownership. Do you guys get it? Again?
Answers.
Cops.
Actually, I'm going to go back a little bit.
Protect our interests. But to talk just real briefly on the state is the instrument of the ruling class to protect private property and maintain their power. And the question that I wanted to ask is, what do you think are some good examples of the state? If anybody wants to raise their hands and give some answers. Cops, yes. Law enforcement is a perfect example of the state. They are not protecting you, No matter how much it says protect and serve, they're protecting private property, which is why cops are going to be one of the first people that are called when private property is threatened by the working class. What's another good example of the state, if anybody wants to?
The legal system.
Legal system,
Judges.
yes. Judges, carceral systems, prisons, jails, these are all methods of the state they use to keep us down. We see that in Eugene right now with the continued repression against protesters, for people that were protesting against the genocide in Palestine. They are using these systems.
Are you still fucking whining in my chat? Are you still whining? You have an opportunity right now to listen to a leftist tell you explicitly what they think and explicitly how they view the world. And instead of sitting back and listening to what is going on and asking questions related to what is going on, which you obviously do not understand yet, you are whining that you didn't get full credit on a quiz for an incorrect answer. And you're trying to convince us that I was asking for your opinion? I don't know who the fuck you are, and I know you haven't been around long enough to know anything about anything. So, if you're here to learn, then you need to accept that there is a hierarchy on this channel, and you are not on top of it. I am on top of it. And we're going based on my rules. And one of my rules is no whining in my chat. You were given an answer, you didn't like the answer, and now you're whining about the answer, which is expressly breaking the rules, when in fact what you should be doing is listening to what the leftist is actually saying. So now I'm going to give you a pop quiz just for you, for no one else. Why do socialists want to abolish or defund the police? Go. This is just for pro-life anti-war. Because pro-life anti-war is now taking up our class time by whining. Why do leftists want to abolish and defund the police? We will look forward to your answer in the chat. We are waiting on you. The entire stream is stopped just for you to provide us with the answer to the question that you should know the answer to if you were listening. No one's asking for your opinion. No one is asking for your opinion. We are asking you to restate what the leftist on the screen just said. So were you listening or were you in your fucking fifis? Because literally, I am asking you to repeat what was just said on this stream less than 2 minutes ago. And had you been listening, this shouldn't be a problem. But no, you're still in your feelings and you're still whining. So now you have 30 seconds to answer me. And if you don't answer me, you're going to get banned for a good long time, and we're just not going to hear from you anymore. And that's just going to be the way it is. And you can cry all you want. Your options are to say, I don't know, or to give the correct answer. Those are your two options. I don't want to hear anything else. You have 30 seconds. Why do leftists want to abolish the police? Do. No. I said you have two options for your answers. Option number 1 is to answer the question I'm asking. Option number 2 is to say, I don't know. I wasn't listening. I know you weren't fucking listening, and that's the problem. You were more in your feelings and interested in whining. That is the problem, when you do not understand the hierarchy that exists on this channel and you just come in and complain. Exactly. You don't know because you were not following instructions and listening to what is being said. So now we're going to rewind the whole thing just for you. And you're going to sit there and you're going to fucking listen. And if you have a question, you are welcome to ask questions. But there will be no more interjections of your feelings in this community. You are an adult. We expect you to act like it. Rewinding. Again.
Ruling class to protect private property and maintain their power. And the question that I wanted to ask is, what do you think are some good examples of the state, if anybody wants to raise their hands and give some answers?
Cops.
Cops, yes, law enforcement. Law enforcement is a perfect example of the state. They are not protecting you, no matter how much it says protect and serve, they are protecting private property, which is why cops are going to be one of the first people that are called when private property is threatened by the working class. What's another good example of the state, if anybody wants to?
The legal system.
Legal system,
Judges.
yes. Judges, carceral systems, prisons, jails, these are all methods of the state they use to keep us down. We see that in Eugene right now with the continued repression against protesters, for people that were protesting against the genocide in Palestine. They are using these systems to repress people, to repress these working class people that are standing against imperialism. So that's another good example.
What did this person just say? The people, and this is why we listen, and this is why I yell at people in my chat who are not listening, for people who are new. I'm not just yelling to be a bitch. I'm yelling because some people need to be told to sit down and shut up and listen. Otherwise, this is a completely wasted exercise. What did this person just say? This person just said the pro-Palestinian protesters are protesting imperialism. They're not protesting Jewish. They're not in favor of Hamas. They're protesting imperialism. What does imperialism mean? Listen to what they're saying about the pro-Palestine protesters.
The state they use to keep us down. We see that in Eugene right now with the continued repression against protesters, for people that were protesting against the genocide in Palestine. They are using these systems to repress people, to repress these working class people that are standing against imperialism.
They're using the system to repress people, working class people that are standing against imperialism. They're not standing against Jewish. They're not standing in favor of Hamas. The reason they're protesting is to stand against imperialism. Imperialism, according to Lenin, is the highest form of capitalism. Imperialism is expanding the empire. It's all about land. Colonization, colonialism, is a form of imperialism. It is about Western powers, usually, though not always, going in, taking land from the indigenous people to expand the empire and colonizing those people. That is what they believe Israel has done in Palestine. The Palestinians are uprising against their imperialist oppressors. They believe Israel is an imperialist. They believe the United States is imperialist. Okay? So they hate us just as badly as they hate Israel. It ain't got nothing to do with being Jewish. Does everyone understand? It's not anti-Semitism. It's anti-imperialism and anti-colonialism. That's exactly right. Again. And you'll notice this is not part of a prepared speech. This is this person speaking off the cuff. This is not like some line that they've interjected as a talking point. They're saying, oh yeah, the protesters are doing this for reason X, Y, B, and Z. They're speaking off the cuff, which means it's probably what they actually believe.
Jails, these are all methods of the state they use to keep us down. We see that in Eugene right now with the continued repression against protesters, for people that were protesting against the genocide in Palestine. They are using these systems to repress people, to repress these working class people that are standing against imperialism. So that's another good example. You there?
Privatized resources like electricity and water.
What was that again?
Privatized resources are bought out.
Yep, I would definitely agree with that. I think that is a way that they can keep us down.
Central banks, and every country has one.
Yes. I would agree with that. So yes, those are all examples of the state, and of course the military as well.
No, hang on.
Really over.
Hang on. I said this on the stream yesterday. South Africa is a completely different country. South Africa is a completely different culture. In South Africa, when they say Boer, they do mean white skin color. And yeah, you could talk about socialism in South Africa, fine. but it's not the same as the United States. You've got to separate these two out. In the United, no. In South Africa, it is about skin color. In the United States, it is not about skin color. We are not the same countries. These are not the same developments of leftist ideology. You cannot compare the two. That is comparing apples and oranges.
Example of the state. It's not used always against us domestically, although it is sometimes by the National Guard, but it is a way that they use it against people internationally as well to keep down the struggle against imperialism. So because capitalism concentrates wealth in the hands of a few private property owners.
Hang on, we got a question over on Rumble. They just said capitalism concentrates wealth in the hands of a few private property owners. That is exactly the point. America First over on Rumble says, so what kind of system do they want to deal with crime if they don't want courts and judges, etc.? They believe that most crime will go away once capitalism is abolished because they believe that most crime is around capitalism or is directly related to problems that capitalism has caused. So they really do believe that crime is going to basically dissipate once they get rid of capitalism and install their Marxist utopia. So they aren't going to need courts, they aren't going to need jails, they aren't going to need any of those things. And so that's what they believe. And you can think that's crazy all you want, but that is exactly what they believe. No, I'm not going to do that. You want to know why? Because I focus on American leftism and anything else is a distraction, and there is way too much to cover in America as it is, and I am not getting distracted by South Africa. South Africa's problems are South Africa's problems. They are not our problems. I would encourage anyone else who wants to focus on South Africa to do so, but I'm going to continue to focus on America.
By the National Guard, but it is a way that they use it against people internationally as well to keep down the struggle against imperialism. So because capitalism concentrates wealth in the hands of a few private property owners who do no work, it requires the masses of humanity to work in operating the means of production to generate the surplus. And with that, we understand that without the workers, there is no production, and therefore no profit for the capitalists. But without the bosses, nothing happens. The bosses aren't there, work still goes on, you still do your work day. But without the workers, they don't have business. And just like feudalism, capitalism creates its own grave diggers through that. And just before I go ahead and end off my section real quick and hand this off to the next person, I want to read you a quote that I think will lead into the next section pretty well. And this is from The State and Revolution by Vladimir Lenin. The quote reads, "A state arises, a special power is created, special bodies of armed men, meaning police, military, etc. And every revolution, by destroying the state apparatus, shows us the apparent class struggle, clearly shows us how the ruling class strives to restore the special bodies of armed men which serve it, and how the oppressed class strives to create a new organization of this kind, capable of serving the exploited instead of the exploiters." Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Cameron. Excellent stuff. And both mine and Cameron's talks are, I think pretty important leading into what Kaylee will say here at the end. A lot of this can seem kind of abstract.
Is this another she/her?
What does this mean? Why do I care? There's a great quote from an American revolutionary, Bill Haywood, where he said that I have never read Marx's Capital, but I bear the marks of capital upon my body. And so for a lot of working people, there's an intrinsic understanding that something is deeply wrong in the society that we live in and make function with our blood and our sweat and our toil. There is hope, though, because
you would think these people are like farmers out in a field or something, where they're like, we built this country with our blood, sweat, and toil, when in fact they're like a barista at a coffee shop, and it's not even a good coffee shop. It's like one of those coffee shops where they have the really like advanced like cappuccino machine where all the barista has to do is go and hit like a couple buttons and it makes the fucking cappuccino for them.
as Cameron mentioned, capitalism in all class society breeds its own gravediggers. And in the case of capitalism, it is the workers themselves. As we continue to face down the existential crises that we are all terrified of, climate, the potential for war, all of these are being driven not by us. We want nothing to do with it, but it is the warmongers and industrialists who drive towards it. So what do we do?
Millionaires and the
We have
millionaires.
examples of victory for workers. Is there anything that we can have hope for, or strive to do, or work towards, or is it a scramble to get as good as you can before everything goes under? And I think that is not the answer. The answer is to connect with your fellow workers and build organizations capable of weathering the storms to come and the storms that are happening now. So that is what the party is for. But as I said before, it's this question of do we have these examples of victory? And we do. Many people, when they think of what socialism is in their minds, it's government programs, it's subsidies for healthcare or education. It's the Nordic model from Northern Europe, and look at how happy they are. Why don't we try to do that? Which, fair questions. Why are we not entitled to all of these things as well? But I think it ends up running into some fundamental problems, which are historical ones. Questions of, why is it that Sweden and Norway and all of these countries, why do they have this stuff and we don't? And I think there's some interesting answers to that. And one of it is the militant labor struggles in those countries. Every reform in this country and around the world that we get that makes our lives a little bit easier, we win through struggle and through fighting back with our neighbors and with our communities on our own behalf and on our own terms. And that happened in those countries, but there was another significant influence, and that was the victory of the October Revolution in Russia in 1917 and the establishment of the world's first worker state in the Soviet Union. And that isn't to say...
No, this is not true. You are repeating the conservative bullshit talking point that they're just lazy and they want everything done for them. That is not true. I have heard these people talking about, some of us are going to need to work in the fields and be farmers, and some of us are going to need to do this and need to do that. So it is absolutely untrue that they do not believe that they will have to do physical labor. What they do believe is that they will have to work substantially less hours than they currently have to work, because there will not be the surplus of production. And without the surplus, you don't need to work all those extra hours because you're just creating enough for the community or whatever. And this is how people end up starving. But it is completely untrue that they do not believe they're going to have to do this. They do believe it. So yeah, that's that.
That there's some sort of sycophantic worship of a country like the Soviet Union or any other country that was able to win power for working people and build a country on their own terms. Instead, it is, how do we learn from these lessons that have been won? Well, there have been examples of victory, and what can we take from that? So in the case of a country like the Soviet Union and Russia itself, you need a little bit of background. In 1917, the Russian Empire had millions of people in it, and most of them were illiterate. The life expectancy was around between 35 and 40 years old. The Tsar threw millions of workers and peasants into the trenches of World War I, in which they were massacred. And this awoken within the Russian masses an idea that this can't go on. And so they had a capitalist, sort of liberal, Western-style revolution in February, which overthrew the Tsar and created sort of liberal democracy. What came from that was
They murdered the Tsar and his family in a basement and overthrew the government, just to be clear.
The leadership of that revolution were committed to the war and continuing to fight the Germans. So the workers said, enough with people throwing us into barbed wire and gas and machine guns. We are going to go with the people who say this can be stopped. And so the Bolsheviks, a working class party, was able to lead the Russian masses to take power. By the end of World War II, in which the Soviet Union lost 30 million of its citizens in the fight against the sadistic and rabid Nazi war machine, defeated with the blood, sweat, and tears of all the Soviet people, the Soviet Union had been devastated. But how is it then that this country that came from World War I, in which most people still worked the land using horse and plow, how did they put together an army capable of defeating the Wehrmacht? And they were able to do it through socialism, through building an industrialized economy rapidly.
Through
As Cameron
socialism?
alluded to,
You don't say.
modernity and the process of industrialization is a horrifying process. And the question really is, you know, for the West, places like England and the United States can say, well, we industrialized, quote unquote, peacefully, in that they stole all of the wealth out of other places and decided to massacre people in places like India or Native Americans or carving up Africa to lay the foundations for their industrial societies. The Soviet Union, as a socialist country, did it on their own. And it was very horrible and brutal because that's what the process of industrializing is like. But they did it, they pushed through, and they defeated the Nazis. In a single lifetime, a worker in this country whose parents lived in dirt housing would watch on his television set in a built apartment complex created by the socialist state the first man to go into space. This is all in a single lifetime. And people talk about socialism as inefficient or less capable as capitalism. But I point to that and say the Soviet Union, which lifted millions and millions of people out of the darkness of illiteracy, granted women rights, and defeated the Nazi war machine, that's the success and victory of working people. And today, we still have examples of this, even after the counter-revolutionary wave of the 1990s. Like I mentioned before, the Soviet Union is not some sort of like exemplar or church that we worship sort of dogmatically. No, we're not Russian peasants in a country that's not industrialized. We don't have the same trials before us that the people in that country did. But we can take for those victories and we can hold them up as the victories of working people. And it's the same in other countries as well. The country that we here in the American Empire is driving towards war, China, had an even worse situation that was able to be rectified through the creation of socialism very consciously. Being responsible for the vast majority of people being lifted out of poverty over the last like 40 years. So all of this to say,
wait.
Okay, why?
Okay. It is true that most socialist activists in the United States are not Maoists. They're not. However, the Party for Socialism and Liberation leans Stalinist. This is why they're extolling the virtues of the USSR during World War II, which is when Stalin was running things, okay? So they lean Stalinist. Maoists are in the tradition of Stalinists. So if you're surprised to hear that they believe that Maoism in China was just great and that China ended up lifting a bunch of people, like if you're surprised to hear that because you're like, Karlyn, they're not Maoists, they don't, okay, but that's one of the exceptions is the Party for Socialism and Liberation, because they do tend to lean in that direction, even though most of the socialist activists that we watch do not lean in that direction. Let's just listen to that again.
Take for those victories and we can hold them up as the victories of working people. And it's the same in other countries as well. The country that we here in the American Empire is driving towards war, China, had an even worse situation that was able to be rectified through the creation of socialism very consciously, being responsible for the vast majority of people being lifted out of poverty over the last like 40 years. So all of this to say, okay, why talk about this? Why is this important? It's to show the capitalists who want us to believe that there is no alternative, that we've reached the end of history and everything horrible in your life that is done to you and to your families for the sake of somebody else and their bottom line, something can be done about it. And so they'll tell you all sorts of things, some true, some totally made up, about socialist countries in order to demonize the victories of working people. So what we seek to do
it's all made
in
up.
this country is to build an American, what does it mean to be socialist in this country? And that's what we're seeking to sort of find out. And so when we're talking about the defeat of the Eastern Bloc in the 1990s, this question of like, well, why did this happen if this victory was so amazing? There's all these achievements. And it's because this class struggle that Cameron talked about doesn't just end. It's an ongoing process. It's one that has to be continued through to what we call communism, which is Marx's answer to the riddle of history being solved. If history is that of the class struggle, then communism is the cessation of that. And it's a process that we work towards. So that's why...
Hang on, I do see over on Rumble, Mama says, whenever it is possible, how does the super chat in giving to your work? So if you want to give to my work, and I do appreciate that over on Rumble, you're welcome to send in a super chat. You're also welcome to go to karlyn.substack.com, and you can sign up as a monthly or annual member there. There are also other options in the description. If you want to make a one-time gift, there's an option for it in the description and stuff like that. And I do appreciate you guys giving to my work. If you appreciate me taking the time to break this stuff down for you guys and listen to it with you and explain what all this means and put it into context for you. If you want to throw in a $5 super chat, $10 super chat, $100 super chat, whatever, please feel free to do so. We'll add it to our overall goal. And I can't do it without you guys. So I'm completely funded by you. So if you feel inclined, tips, even though I would still pay taxes on them, which is bullshit. I don't want to pay taxes on super chats. Everyone else gets no taxes on tips. I'm just going to start calling my super chats tips, and therefore I'm not going to pay taxes on them. It's just going to be the way it goes. Anyway.
We're here saying we're working to build socialism. The socialism as a process in this sort of historical development and in this victory and resolution of class conflict is a necessary step, one in which the socialist state, one is in the hands of working people, can defend the victories of the working people themselves. And in the case of the collapse of the Eastern Bloc in the 1990s, which led to the greatest decrease in life expectancy in non-wartime in history, as they carved up all of the state enterprises and everything. They sold it off. All of these oligarchs that you hear talked about in Russia today are people who are the descendants from these ones who carved up all of the industries that were built and sold off. They were defeated, and that's because our enemy, capitalist forces, the imperialist forces, are tenacious, and they will do anything, including dropping nuclear bombs on civilian population centers to prove a point. And they were able to defeat the Soviet Union, the Eastern Bloc. That does not mean that socialism is defeated. Clearly, as you're looking all around, the crises of capitalism become more and more manifest every day. And so the question that we need to answer is, what does it mean for us to free ourselves from this? And that's why I'm going to toss it to Kaylee, because she's going to try to answer that question.
But she's not going to do that for at least 5 minutes.
That's right.
I think, because we're going to just take a little break. and just collect thoughts and biological necessities. And
Including snacks.
There are
And
snacks
tea.
over there, although they're sort of blocked because there are a lot of people here. But the people near the snacks will gladly help you get snacks. They're great people. I know some of them. The ones I know are great. So please, let's take about 5 minutes to just.
Thank you for recording.
Should we come back?
How do we find it in the future?
Everybody in the room ready to come back?
It'll be.
All right.
YouTube.com.
Oh, Todd. Okay.
All right. Found some seats, got some snacks. Cool. So in this next section, we were going to prepare some conversation about what is to be done. What are we planning to do? Because I think after the election, a lot of us have this question of like wanting to do something, but not knowing what it is. And so I think this is going to be our perspective on what is to be done and what we're planning to do.
Excellent.
If you're, first of all, just for your information, this is how we're thinking about it. Second of all, if you'd like to join us, we love people joining us. That's great. And third of all, if you're against us, you can know how to strategize against us. and you can figure out how to defeat us. Again, there are like 5 of us in town.
For now.
For now. So, just all, regardless of why you're here, I think this will be useful.
Hey,
So,
thanks, Daniel. Appreciate it.
I just wanted to start with some orientation on how we're approaching the problem, right? How we're approaching the coming period. So first is that as the PSL, as a socialist party, our goal is to kind of merge. I mean, if we want to create something like a socialist revolution in the United States and start implementing the system, what is required, right? And as Sam was kind of saying, there are 300 million people in the United States plus. There are a lot. There's a big army. There's a lot of cops, and there's a whole state that's meant to sort of defend capitalism. And to that end, we need a lot of those people. And a lot of them right now think socialism is a failed system. Communism is a failed system. Hasn't worked, won't work. Everyone starves, everyone goes to gulags, and we don't want that. So in order to actually create that society in the United States, we need to win over a lot of people. Not everybody, but like maybe some of you were thinking of a number, like how many? What numbers are coming to mind?
75.
75 people? Not quite.
10 million plus would do it.
10 million plus.
You don't need 350 million, but 10 million with their shoulder to the wheel, that would do it.
That's fair. 10 million, I think.
3.5%.
3.5%. There's this group on the right there called, like, what are they, the 3%ers? They say that.
3.5%. We need our own 1%.
Right.
For sure. We need
But-
the opposite.
The other part about the right is that, like, actually our ruling class loves that.
Yeah.
So they don't need as many as we need. How we like to frame it is that we need to win 100 million people over to the idea that socialism is possible in order to actually implement it in the United States. The kind of
I don't agree with that at all. I think they need significantly less than 100 million people. I mean, statistically speaking, you need to get about 12% of the population in order to elicit a revolution. So there is no way that they need upwards of there's no way. But, they're going to say that because it's going to keep the revolution being perpetual.
mass organization, mass revolt that will actually force that change is something like that number. And of course, we don't have a crystal ball. I'd love it if it's 10 million. I'd love even more if it's 75, but we have a lot more than 75 members nationally, so I know now, so far, it's not 75.
But if each one of us went home and got 75 friends,
That's right.
I mean, I don't have that many friends, but
This is how social networks work.
Yeah, go make some.
Exactly. So we try to merge all of the fights that are emerging against capitalism we try to lock into all of those fights wherever people are in motion against the system. We are there. We're there supporting, working, helping working people in whatever those battles are, whether they're union battles or, you know, battles against Palestine. People are in motion about Palestine. Battles against police brutality. We're participating in all of those struggles, recruiting, helping to connect people from those struggles, because as people address the single issue that brought them into the movement, right, they're in that position to understand how all of it is connected to the system. And then this is how we sort of merge struggles and create the social network that gets to 100 million. Like, this is the project, and it requires optimism, it requires patience, it requires actually listening to people and what their problems are, and, you know, and understanding, like, how are we planning to address the actual problems that people are experiencing? You know, working people. I don't care what problems Oprah's experiencing. So that's the point. So in that, as we merge those struggles, we do fight for reforms within capitalism, right? We fight for police accountability. We fight for, within capitalism, Medicare for all, or healthcare, or elimination of student debt. We fight for, you know, wherever there's an opportunity to make a reform that improves the lives of working people, we want to be there to fight for it. But we know that when we win those reforms within this system, at any moment, they're reversible. And we don't have to look that far back to understand that. That Roe v. Wade and abortion rights was a victory that had been won not that long ago, a few decades. And then as soon as the opportunity to roll it back was there, it was rolled back. So whenever we win those reforms, they're always on the table to be rolled back under this system. And that's why we agitate for the overturn and the creation of a completely new system. But we do fight for those reforms to bring people in and to merge those struggles into one.
So to my friend earlier that was talking about how there are reformers within the far left and you don't know everything and not everyone wants the same thing. I hope the person that I yelled at earlier is still listening, because what did he just say? What did he just say? And by the way, Reagan, don't make a clip of this or anything. I need to use this for something else. But like, what did he just say? He literally just said, we're going to try to make reforms within the system. We're going to try to do all this stuff. But keep in mind that we are hyper aware that if we are working within the capitalist system, these reforms are going to be overturned because we're still within the capitalist system. And so our ultimate goal is always to transform the system to make it into something different. You guys got it? Let's listen to that again. Hang on.
That gets to 100 million. Like, this is the project, and it requires optimism, it requires patience, it requires actually listening to people and what their problems are, and, you know, and understanding, like, how are we planning to address the actual problems that people are experiencing? You know, working people. I don't care what problems Oprah's experiencing. So that's the point. So in that, as we merge those struggles, we do fight for reforms within capitalism, right? We fight for police accountability. We fight for, within capitalism, Medicare for all, or healthcare, or elimination of student debt. We fight for, you know, wherever there's an opportunity to make a reform that improves the lives of working people, we want to be there to fight for it. But we know that when we win those reforms within this system, at any moment, they're reversible. And we don't have to look that far back to understand that. That Roe v. Wade and abortion rights was a victory that had been won not that long ago, a few decades. And then as soon as the opportunity to roll it back was there, it was rolled back. So whenever we win those reforms, they're always on the table to be rolled back under this system. And that's why we agitate for the overturn and the creation of a completely new system. But we do fight for those reforms to bring people in and to merge those struggles into one. And the other reason that we fight is, like, this idea of revolution, actually creating a revolution. We don't get to decide, ultimately. when there's a revolution. Sam was kind of saying, like, the conditions for revolution, you don't just wake up one morning and say it's time, right? There have to be like particular conditions that get the masses of people into motion to finally decide, I'm willing to risk it all for something else, for my family, my kids, my future, for all of us. And so these are situations that occur. These are what we would call the objective conditions for revolution. They sort of manifest externally, and we're not in control of them. But just like the Bolsheviks, we're not in control of whether the Tsar decided to stay in World War I or what, how many casualties that war would bring. But we are in control of the subjective conditions of the consciousness of the people around us, and advancing that consciousness, always like building people's understanding and relationship with the idea of socialism to try to get to that 100 million, so that when the conditions appear, we're actually ready. We're not building the ship once the storm has started. We've sort of already built it, and now we're ready to go.
So this is actually really important for people to understand. So why would you start a political party if you know that you will never win an election? Why are you running presidential and vice presidential candidates if you know that you will never win an election? Why are you doing this if you don't even really believe in electoral politics? Because the Party for Socialism and Liberation does not believe in electoral politics. So then why are you building a political party? You're building a political party to give people something to join. Because what these people believe is we are in late stage capitalism. Capitalism, they believe it's on its last legs. They believe that people are starting to get really pissed off with the system, and they believe there is going to be some sort of incendiary event. Something's going to happen, and they can't predict what's going to happen, and they can't predict when it's going to happen, but there's going to be some sort of event that, boom, it's like George Floyd. It's like George Floyd dying and the left shoots out of a cannon, and all of a sudden we've got massive protests everywhere. They're building the Revolutionary Party now so that they are prepared when the revolutionary crisis happens, because they don't think they're going to be able to predict exactly when it happens. So you have to prepare now. You have to give people something to join now. You have to set up the systems of organizations now. If you wait until the revolution already starts, it's too late. So they're very proactive. And so what the pro-Palestine protests are is about recruitment. What these information sessions are, they're reaching out to progressives and liberals. This is an introduction to socialism presentation. They're reaching out to progressives and liberals, the ones that voted for Kamala Harris, and they're saying, hey, do you understand that the Democrats suck? Because we hate the Democrats too. And the progressives and liberals are like, oh yeah, the Democrats suck. They don't like them either. And they're going, just so you know, we're over here and we don't like them. And if you want to come and hang out with us, that's okay. And there might be a transitionary period for a lot of people on the left where they're like, okay, maybe, and we're talking again about progressives and liberals. They're like, okay, maybe we're still going to vote for our Democrats, but we are more we have more affinity with you guys, and we agree with you more, and you guys are doing this anti-war stuff that we like. And so they're using it as a way to get people on their team and to pull people into their organization and to pull people farther left, because they believe there's going to be, boom, our pre-revolutionary crisis that's going to set things off. And they want to be ready when that happens. Does everyone understand that? All right.
So this is kind of how we approach our work, is in this capacity of building consciousness, building the subjective conditions for revolution, so that when the objective conditions appear, that makes it possible. And we do that, as Kayla will talk about, by building the party and by actually engaging in working class struggle.
So they're building the party, they're building the revolutionary apparatus by just being out there and talking to people and working with people and engaging in the perpetual struggle. Let's go back to the beginning and let's just watch this whole thing again, because they're really saying the quiet part out loud here in a very kind of like overt way. about what they're doing and why they're doing it. I'm going to go all the way back. We're just going to let it play, and I just want people to listen.
Or, battles against Palestine. People are in motion about Palestine. Battles against police brutality. We're participating in all of those struggles, recruiting, helping to connect people from those struggles. Because as people address,
I'm going to go back a little bit farther because he's flat out saying, this is also another saying the quiet part out loud. He's also saying that, like, we've got our hands in all of these different problems in society because that's allowing us to recruit more people and bring more people under the socialist umbrella. So why are we participating in the Palestine protests? To recruit more people. Why are we doing the Medicare for All thing? To recruit more people. Why are we doing the police thing? To recruit more people. They're trying to bring all of the problems that they think capitalism has created into one group. And so that's why they have all their kind of like irons in the fire.
Each one of us went home and got 75 friends.
That's right.
I mean, I don't have that many friends, but
this is how social networks work.
Yeah, go make some.
Exactly. So we try to merge all of the fights that are emerging against capitalism. We try to lock into all of those fights wherever people are in motion against the system. We are there. We're there supporting, working, helping working people in whatever those battles are, whether they're union battles, or battles against Palestine. People are in motion about Palestine. Battles against police brutality. We're participating in all of those struggles, recruiting, helping to connect people from those struggles, because as people address the single issue that brought them into the movement, right, they're in that position to understand how all of it is connected to the system. And then this is how we sort of merge struggles and create the social network that gets to 100 million. Like, this is the project. And it requires optimism, it requires patience, it requires actually listening to people and what their problems are, and and understanding, like, how are we planning to address the actual problems that people are experiencing? Working people. I don't care what problems Oprah's experiencing. So that's the point. So in that, as we merge those struggles, we do fight for reforms within capitalism, right? We fight for police accountability. We fight for, within capitalism, Medicare for all, or healthcare, or elimination of student debt. We fight for, wherever there's an opportunity to make a reform that improves the lives of working people, we want to be there to fight for it. But we know that when we win those reforms within this system, at any moment, they're reversible. And we don't have to look that far back to understand that. Roe v. Wade and abortion rights was a victory that had been won not that long ago, a few decades, and then as soon as the opportunity to roll it back was there, it was rolled back. So whenever we win those reforms, they're always on the table to be rolled back under this system, and that's why we agitate for the overturn and the creation of a completely new system. But we do fight for those reforms to bring people in and to merge those struggles into one. And the other reason that we fight is, like, this idea of revolution, actually creating a revolution. We don't get to decide, ultimately, when there's a revolution. Sam was kind of saying, like, the conditions for revolution, you don't just wake up one morning and say it's time, right? There have to be, like, particular conditions that get the masses of people into motion to finally decide, I'm willing to risk it all for something else, for my family, my kids, my future, for all of us. And so these are situations that occur. These are what we would call the objective conditions for revolution. They sort of manifest externally, and we're not in control of them. But just like the Bolsheviks, we're not in control of whether the Tsar decided to stay in World War I, or what, how many casualties that war would bring. But we are in control of the subjective conditions of the consciousness of the people around us, and advancing that consciousness, always, like, building people's understanding and relationship with the idea of socialism to try to get to that 100 million, so that when the conditions appear, we're actually ready. We're not building the ship once the storm has started. We've sort of already built it, and now we're ready to go. So this is kind of how we approach our work, is in this capacity of building consciousness, building the subjective conditions for revolution, so that when the objective conditions appear, that makes it possible. And we do that as Kayla will talk about, by building the party and by actually engaging in working class struggle. So with that, I will pass off to Kaylee to talk about what are we going to do.
What are we gonna do?
Okay. Donnie Girl, thank you for the super sticker, Donnie Girl. We are, oh gosh, you're gonna make me do math. We are $23 away from meeting our goal for the day. If you guys would like to chip into the super chat goal to, provide some, gratitude for the fact that I'm breaking down a 2-hour. We still have an hour left to go in this presentation, guys. This must have been a heck of a Q&A. We got a long way to go. I want to meet my super chat goal. You guys can help me meet my super chat goal. We're going to be here a minute. But I do want to address Ben's comment. To organize based on collective grievance, it's not collective grievance. That is a conservative bullshit way to put it. They may not be in the same grievance. No, they are completely in the same grievance. But that's where intersectionality comes in. No, bro. No. You're on the right track, but you don't understand it yet. Every grievance the left has comes back to capitalism. Capitalism creates all problems. Their goal is always and forever to overthrow capitalism. This is not the case of some people have some grievances and other people have other grievances. No. No. Do not do this pouty. You're not agreeing with me. You're thinking about doing fine, whatever. Do you know how fucking petulant this is? I am taking the time out of my stream to explain to you why you are wrong and you're being an ungrateful fucking brat. So now I'm going to speak to you like you're being an ungrateful brat because quite frankly, you are unworthy of my time and unworthy of my attention, but I'm going to make a fucking example out of you. That's not what people are joining. No, yes, they do. Yes, they do. You're in the presentation right now where they are teaching them. You are in the fucking indoctrination ceremony right fucking now on the screen in front of you. Do you know who doesn't understand what's going on? You. Every single person in this room, I promise you, is extremely clear that capitalism is the grievance. They've said it several dozen times in the presentation already, and we're only halfway through it. The person who doesn't know what the fuck is going on is you. The person who doesn't know what the fuck is going on are conservatives who use the same bullshit talking points. Yes, you asshole. You right now. Hey, Ben, what's the definition of capitalism? What is the left's definition of capitalism? If I hear anything more from you other than the left's definition of capitalism, you're getting banned for the rest of the stream. What is the left's definition of capitalism? Go. You think you know everything? You think you don't need to be, you think you don't need to be here to learn? You have forgotten the fucking hierarchy. You are in my classroom. I am not in yours. Everyone else here is in my classroom. They're not in yours. What is the left's definition of capitalism? If you say anything other than that, you're banned for the rest of the stream. Go. You can say, I don't know, or you can give us the left's definition of capitalism. We're waiting. Yo! See? I yell and I receive. I yell, I slap down some ungrateful dick in the chat, and I get a nice $100 super chat as a thank you. Thank you, Andre. Very, 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 very generous. Very generous. And we have met goal. We have blown past the goal. Hey, Ben, we're still waiting for you to find the left's definition of capitalism. Don't you know? You know everything, right? You know everything. They've talked about their definition of capitalism literally in this presentation. We did a whole section on it. So do you know the left's definition of capitalism or don't you? You don't know. That's exactly right. You don't know. And do you know how I know you didn't know? Is because you said that's where intersectionality comes in. Do you know what intersectionality means, Ben? Do you know what intersectionality means, really? Intersectionality means all the ways in which you are oppressed by capitalism. The grievance is always the same. The left is very clear. They know what's going on. People like you do not know what's going on because you show up and you think you already know everything when in fact you don't know very basic 101 level stuff. So my recommendation for you is to ask questions when you don't understand something and stop pretending you do. Because I promise you, if you cannot give us the left's definition of capitalism, which is private property ownership, by the way, you don't know shit. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, people do like being yelled at. It's true. I have a class of people, a chat of people, a class chat, whatever. I have a chat of people who love being yelled at. Continuing.
What are we gonna do? No, I actually do. I know what I'm doing. I don't know what y'all are doing. Would love it if we could do stuff together. So I joined the party back in 2017, in a moment that feels remarkably similar to the one that I am currently living in. I was pissed. I was horrified. This was my first election also, and I was like, I grew up thinking that, like...
To be very clear, it is incredibly personal. I absolutely remember the people that I yell at, and if they continue to work out their feelings in my chat, they don't last long. It is personal. I yelled at you because you weren't showing any humility. Because you weren't learning anything, you were only whining. The reason I just yelled at Ben is because he pretended to know what the fuck he was talking about in the chat when in fact he did not know what he was talking about. And anytime people do that shit, it's confusing for everyone else. So no, it is deeply, deeply, deeply personal.
Voting mattered, and also like democracy was here, and
not
we
random,
did it,
but
and
it is
America's
personal.
perfect. What happened? Like, how is this even possible? And it was a like horrifying, very jolting moment, and I'm so grateful that in that moment that I was able to find an organization of people who actually want to win. Like, we are not, we read, we talk about the things we read, we, and all of that's important. But I really wanted to, I don't want like that pragmatism piece. I don't want to just think about it and talk about it. I actually want to do this thing. And I'm grateful that I found a place and a party that is full of people that also want to do the thing. And that's not just a sales pitch. Ian will talk to you about why he joined the PSL. But I just want to say that because shortly after that experience, after I joined the party in 2017, I'm a social worker, and I was working at the time at an emergency shelter for women and children who were experiencing domestic violence. And I like to say that if I had not already been a socialist before becoming a social worker, it probably would have taken me about a week or two to come to the same conclusions, right? And this was a perfect example. I was working with a woman who's undocumented and had 5 children. And during the ICE raids, this was like, it all blurs together, it was so dramatic, but during the raids that Trump oversaw of ICE raids in all over the place. I remember having this conversation with her about, and it was such a pivotal moment in my life because I had already intellectually committed to, so I was like, capitalism is the problem, socialism is the solution. But it was in talking with her about...
I just want to note what she just said. Because Ben, who has apologized, and I appreciate it when people apologize. But what she just said is, I've always known that capitalism is the problem and socialism is the solution. People on the right think the left are not clear on this because people on the right play all this clickbait bullshit content where they go around to protest and they find the one person that doesn't know why they're there. And they're like, can you tell us why they're here? And that person's like, and they say completely stupid things. And then the right takes that clip and they put it all over Twitter saying, look, the left doesn't even know why they're upset. When in fact, if you went and asked the organizers of the protest, they would say, here are a list of demands. If you went and asked the people that were really like excited about going to that protest and weren't just going because it was something to do and something to see, they're going to say, oh yeah, I'm upset for reason X, Y, B, and Z. Like, the left is usually very, very clear about what they're doing, even if you can find onesie and twosie people in the crowd who have no fucking clue what's going on. But because the right only sees, and the right's like, they're paid protesters. They don't know why they're there. They don't have jobs. They're paid. It's like, it's all bullshit. Because if you actually listen to the left, they're like, oh yeah, capitalism is the problem. It's always been the problem. We always known capitalism is the problem. It's the right that doesn't understand this. It's the left that does. Again.
And it was such a pivotal moment in my life because I had already intellectually committed to, so I was like, capitalism is the problem, socialism is the solution. But it was in talking with her about having to have the conversation with her 5-year-old child. I was working with her kids. I work with kids. And I was working with her kids and she was like, I don't know how to talk to my kid about this. I don't know how to talk to him about the reality that he may come home from school one day and I might not be here and I don't know how to talk to him about that. And I said, it was such a, anyway, I share that not because it's sad or horrifying, even though it is both of those things. That galvanized me in a way that I can't really describe because it made it more real for me. You know, I grew up on food stamps. Like I had my fair share of like problems with the system, but just to have it right there was something that made it. It wasn't ideas in books by a bunch of like really smart dead guys and gals and other people. It was like, no, this is a thing that like is hurting my people. Like this person is my person. Her interests are my interests. Our interests are not aligned with those interests. So I wasn't planning on sharing that, but I wanted to because I think it's the moment that we're living in and we're talking a lot about it and we're thinking a lot about it. And that's great. And also we need to remember that this is like a fight that is not about just us. This is a fight that transcends us, even though our fight matters too. Okay, all right, I'll stop. Since I've been in the party, I've seen lots of ebbs and flows in the movement, right? Like people's openness to really breaking with the Democratic Party and trying to build something different. This was like, after they kneecapped Bernie Sanders, big moment for socialism. The Trump's election, and now, but this is next level, people. The energy, passion, determination that I've witnessed in talking with many of the people in this room and people outside of this room who are realizing that the time is now is truly like energizing and mobilizing and even as we face the really harsh reality.
Oh yeah. People are ready to abandon the Democratic Party and embrace socialism. Oh yeah.
To really breaking with the Democratic Party and trying to build something different.
Hang on.
This was like, after they kneecapped Bernie.
Sorry, I need to go back a little bit more.
This is like a fight that is not about just us. This is a fight that transcends us, even though our fight matters too. Okay, all right, I'll stop. Since I've been in the party, I've seen lots of ebbs and flows in the movement, right? Like people's openness to really breaking with the Democratic Party and trying to build something different. This was like, after they kneecapped Bernie Sanders, big moment for socialism. The Trump's election, and now, but this is next level, people. The energy, passion, determination that I've witnessed in talking with many of the people in this room and people outside of this room who are realizing that the time is now is truly like energizing and mobilizing and even as we face the really harsh realities of a Trump second term, it's like hard, it's like really hard for me because I'm like horrified and I'm thinking about how I felt back then with like those raids. And I'm also like, I've never felt more optimistic that we could actually like build something or try Okay. As has been mentioned, the system that we live under, capitalism feeds off of our despair and off of our isolation, and the status quo that we find ourselves in I believe, depends on our fear and our apathy and our nihilism and our I can't do anything about it, or I'm gonna go crawl in a hole and hide, or I'm gonna flee the country. All of those feelings are valid, but those feelings don't actually serve us in and of themselves. Like, those feelings, when not directed into something productive, as has been mentioned, those actually harm. Those are actually harmful. I will posit. When we don't actually take those feelings and organize about it and actually like fight back about it, it actually just feeds the system, because it's a vote of like you're consenting by not that makes no sense. You're consenting to the status quo by not doing something about it. And so we need to be serious. We need to be bold. We need to stand up. We need to fight back. Unlike the Democratic Party, we need to have a backbone. And the beautiful thing about this is that everybody has something to contribute. Everybody in this room, everybody outside of this room. We are not all great public speakers. We are not all great, writers or whatever, but we all have something to contribute. And if we're gonna fight back and win, if we're gonna fight back against Trump and win, it's going to take the work and the contributions of thousands of people just like us in meeting rooms like this all across the country who are fed up. And that is beautiful and exciting and scary and necessary. A couple quotes I want to share. Claudia de la Cruz, our presidential candidate, shared, "Trump is only a symptom. The actual disease that we must work to destroy is capitalism and US imperialism." Another quote from Eugene Puryear, who's the host of at Breakthrough News and a party member, said, "This is not really a struggle between Democrats and Republicans. This is a struggle between the decline of capitalism and the rights of working class people." That's it, right? That's what we're experiencing. This is not, there is a realignment of the ruling class in this country to the right. They are aligned. They are on the same page, more and more so every day. In the words of Frederick Douglass, power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has, it never will, as Sam beautifully put and has been mentioned. The ruling class, the 1%, has never granted any concessions out of the goodness of their heart, never one time. This is where that pragmatism comes in too. We have had to organize and fight for them. There are thousands of unnamed people, just like you, just like me, who were a part of the civil rights movement that made the Civil Rights Act possible. We'll never know their names. They're gone to history. All we know is the Civil Rights Act was passed on this day and by these people and blah, blah, blah. There are thousands of everyday people who were pissed and did something about it that made that happen. That doesn't just like appear out of nowhere. That's that pragmatism. That's where we actually have some power to do something, because without a demand, they're never going to give us anything. And in fact, as Rob rightly pointed out, even when we do get something, they'll take it back. So I believe, out of all of the places that I could spend my time, organizing, working, talking to people, holding events like this, I choose this space because of that. And the ruling class is never going to give us the world that we all deserve to live in. It's never going to give us they are never going to grant us out of the goodness of their hearts, or because they wake up tomorrow morning and go, "Oh, but the working people of this country." That's not going to happen. Their interests are in conflict with our interests. They are not. And that doesn't mean that there aren't differences of like the liberal and more progressive wing of the ruling class and the conservative fascistic psycho, and they're all psycho, but
yeah,
like,
they're all psycho.
This is not like, this is the world that we've been taught to believe is true, is that like individual politicians make individual votes. We are zooming out and we are thinking about whose interests in society are being served and whose interests are not being served. That is the ultimate question, right? And paralysis is not the answer. The only way forward is through organized struggle. We have to build the world that we deserve to live in, because it will never be given to us. As Rob shared earlier, the PSL was formed a little over 20 years ago in the wake of the Iraq War movement, anti-Iraq War movement. And the reason it was founded is because our founders were determined to lead a revival of revolutionary socialist thought and organizing in the United States that we're now witnessing, that now has spread and is much bigger than it was at that time. We are fully committed to the fight against capitalism and all of the environmental, infrastructural, and human, deeply human destruction that comes with it. And the change that we need is going to require struggle, successful struggle, which is my section of the talk that I'm now actually getting to, sorry, Rob.
Yeah, what does successful struggle look like?
The only successful struggle requires an organization. It requires people who are determined and capable of waging that struggle. We have public forums like this, and that's great because, right, we're raising consciousness, we're talking to people, we're getting people excited or interested in what we have to say. But in the end, the radical shifts that are needed in our world and our economy are only going to be brought about through struggle and fighting back. And that's why we, ever since our party was founded, we are dedicated to leading those struggles, to organizing those struggles, and participating in those struggles all the time. Socialism is only going to be accomplished through a sustained militant fight. Emphasis on sustained, right? Like I have no expectation that socialism is going to come in this country in my lifetime. But I'm going to die knowing that I carried the baton for as long as I could, and I ran as fast as I could and to try to get it to the next person. And I do that for myself. I do that for my client who was worried about getting raided by ICE. I do that for my neighbor who voted for Trump. I do that for my neighbor who voted for Kamala Harris, right? These are not the divisions. These are not the divisions in our country. The division is between the ruling class and the working class, and our interests are never, ever going to be reconciled without ever, period. Therefore, the question is, whose interest does the state serve? Does the state's interest serve billionaires, or does it serve my neighbors?
Millionaires and billionaires.
People who go to work, actually work for a living, who make this country what it is.
Are you telling me that socialists have jobs? Are you telling me the people who are organizing and running these meetings, they have jobs? Because I've been hearing reliably from conservatives for years that none of these people have jobs. And yet here they are talking about just being working class people who are being driven to socialism at their jobs. I've heard people say that socialists are super lazy, and the only jobs they have is as paid protesters. Amazing. This person is a social worker. This is in a school. That means there's teachers there. We have librarians. Are you telling me none of those people have jobs?
Are they serving? Okay. So, as has been mentioned, revolutionary opportunities do not arise as a result of some objective conditions alone, or the consciousness of the masses of people by itself. Revolutionary situations are only possible, what we've learned through history, we love history.
Wouldn't you know it?
There's these cascading contradictions of capitalism, imperialism, oppression. And it forces the status quo to a standstill. It forces something has to give at some point, right? So civil rights revolution, some people call it the civil rights revolution. I think that's apt. Something's got to give here, right? We can't go on. We can't keep going on this way. So this can manifest in many ways, like catastrophic job losses, delegitimization of, this feels very appropriate, delegitimizing basic institutions like bourgeois, ruling class U.S. Democracy, right? How many Americans, I saw something the other day, it was like 72% of Americans say that the economy needs significant change, like they are not satisfied with the economy. That's the kind of...
You're telling me that the left is trying to delegitimize bourgeois institutions like American democracy? Did I just hear that correctly? Let's just, rewind just a bit. Hang on.
Whose interests are they serving? Okay. So, as has been mentioned, revolutionary opportunities do not arise as a result of some like objective conditions alone, or the consciousness of the masses of people by itself. Revolutionary situations are only possible, what we've learned through history, we love history, is that there's these cascading contradictions of capitalism, imperialism, oppression, and it forces the status quo to a standstill. It forces, something has to give at some point, right? So civil rights revolution, some people call it the civil rights revolution, I think that's apt. Something's got to give here, right? We can't go on, we can't keep going on this way. So this can manifest in many ways, like catastrophic job losses, delegitimization of, this feels very appropriate, delegitimizing basic institutions like bourgeois, ruling class U.S. Democracy, right? How many Americans, I saw something the other day, it was like 72% of Americans say that the economy needs significant change, like they are not satisfied with the economy. That's the kind of stuff we're talking about. People being like, this is BS. This is not working. Okay, so that's one part. That's one part. Things, the climate catastrophe, the war drive, sending our, workers in the United States to go be killed for oil companies. These are all contradictions that capitalism creates. That's what we mean when we say that capitalism creates its own grave diggers. That's what we mean, is that it's the contradictions inherent in the system, in the constant need to put profit over people and the planet. That is what creates the opportunity for a dramatic shift, whether that's a revolution or some kind of like social progress. There are many situations, revolutionary situations, but fewer revolutions. Why is that? Because revolutions require a combination of all those things I just mentioned, as well as the subjective forces capable of seizing on an opportunity to really change things. We, of course, hope to be that as the Party for Socialism and Liberation, but really what it is going to need is it's going to need a mass movement, and it's going to need organizations like the PSL to seize on those opportunities, because like as was said, we can't like build the boat while it's like, well, it's happening right now. We could do it right now. It's like, perfect, so many examples. Arab Spring, right? If you know about the Arab Spring, that could have been a revolution, but there wasn't an organization that was capable of driving that movement into what it needed to be to actually be successful and actually take power, take it. There was no one who was actually willing to like do what needed to be done and direct those masses of people. There are million people. We have 1 million people a couple blocks away from a military headquarters, by the way, and there was no element to drive those masses of people to do what needed to be done to actually change, fundamentally change.
So again, what they're saying is, this is what we were talking about earlier. The reason they're building political parties now is not to win elections. The reasons they're building political parties now is to give people something to join, to have the organizing apparatus to move in as soon as something happens, because they don't know when the revolutionary crisis is going to happen. So they're telling you this is the purpose of doing this. And the reason I know that is that I've heard them say this more than one time. Okay? So don't be fooled by the fact that it's a political party. They're not organizing for elections. They're organizing to have a group that people can join for when there is a big crisis, and there will be, because they're going to start it if it doesn't just happen naturally. And I have them on video saying that too. When there's a crisis, they want to have the organizational system already in place to be able to go in and say, go in this direction, go in this direction, go in this direction, because they're kind of lamenting the fact that maybe there's been missed opportunities in the past where they didn't have the organization built and they just weren't ready yet. And they had opportunities. They could have done it. There was a pre-revolutionary crisis, but it just wasn't seized upon like it should have been because they weren't ready yet. And now they're trying to get ready for the next time that it happens.
The social relations that existed in Egypt at that time. Okay, that's one example. There are many others. We should take inspiration from the histories of other countries that have waged this struggle while like not being dogmatic, right? Like we are clear-eyed. We understand that this is not, we're not weird. We love to be normal.
They are weird, actually.
That's a direct quote. You can quote me on that. We say it all the time in PSL Eugene. We're normal. We're normal people. We're working people. We're normal. We believe that we deserve better than what we're getting. And I think a lot of Americans believe that. We find ourselves in a really interesting scenario, though, in the US empire, right? Because we're in the belly of the beast, which has built up this political system and this broader culture that is profoundly reactionary, profoundly, the propaganda has worked. and when we think about propaganda, we really, again, for me, it's all about whose interests are being served. So whose interests are being served? If I'm, let's say I'm like a capitalist in the United States, I'm Elon Musk. Who do I benefit from the masses of working class people thinking that socialism is a failed system? Do I benefit from that? Yeah, I do. I really do, because that means I get to maintain my existence and like relationship to my wealth. He benefits from that. So we have to think about when all these things we were taught growing up about socialism doesn't work, whatever, which first of all, embargoes, and we could talk about that.
What is she talking about? She's saying that every time people like us say, you understand, right, that socialism has killed like 100 million people and socialism doesn't work and it leads to a lot of starvation and suffering and death. She's calling that propaganda, because what she's saying is, listen, you evil capitalists, you have a vested interest in convincing all of us that socialism has never been tried. You have a vested interest in propagandizing to us to make us believe that this world is not possible, but we're not falling for your propaganda because we know this world is possible because real socialism has never been tried, which is what they actually believe.
Cuba, perfect example. We have decimated the Cuban economy on purpose and then said socialism doesn't work. That's not reel it back in, Kaylee. What I'm trying to get at is that when we think about all of these really ingrained, same with me when I first joined the party, I was like, I don't know about this. Like, there's a lot of baggage that I have about the word socialism, the word communism, even communist states or socialist countries. But I had to realize whose interests are being served by me thinking this? By me believing that the only way forward is through 1% of what is it, like 10 people having more wealth than 51% of, like the bottom 51% of Americans? That's what they want me to believe. This is the only way. Sorry, we've reached it. It's the end of history. We did it.
It'll trickle down.
Yeah, don't worry. It'll trickle down. Like,
There's something trickling down.
There's something trickling down. And
it's on Reagan's grave.
It was the way I heard it said once is like, yeah, trickle down economics is just rich people, urinating on the rest of us. That's what's happening. And it needs, we have to be clear-eyed about it. We can't fall into these ideas about, like, we need to be critical. We need to not be dogmatic and like everything that the Soviet Union ever did was perfect and nothing ever went wrong. That's completely not realistic and weird. We're not weird. We're normal, and normal people learn from successes and from failures, both. We learn from both. Okay. Get off my high horse again.
Just a couple more minutes.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Rob, for prompting me. I have a couple more minutes. Okay. In a couple more minutes, what's most important? Malcolm X said, "We are not outnumbered, we're out-organized." To make a socialist revolution happen in the United States, it's going to take more than spontaneous rebellions, protests, or us all waiting idly by for something to happen. We have to take our destiny into our own hands, and that means doing something about it. We can't wait for a revolutionary opportunity to present itself to then be like, oh dang, we really need a party. It's like, we got to build that party now. So that when that happens, likely not in any of our lifetimes, maybe, I would love to be wrong about that, then we're ready. Because there's no time to waste. Like, we know this. We know about climate change. We know about war, the threat of constant war. And we in the PSL choose to dedicate our time to building the party as the mechanism to bring about the socialist transformation of society, because that's what we believe. That's the only thing that has ever worked. That is the only thing that objectively, having that kind of a party that can lead people in those kinds of moments is the only way that that we have a shot of doing this. And I believe we do have a shot. Like I said, it requires hope, it requires patience, a lot of patience. The PSL has a program, it has a plan, it has a winning strategy. It's been demonstrated by history. Most importantly, we are here in Eugene, Oregon. And so when we ask the question, what is to be done, there are lots of things that are to be done, and we would love you to, we want you to bring your talents, your skills, your interests to this movement, whatever that means, whether that's joining, volunteering, continuing to come to our events, showing up in the streets, which we are in the streets a lot. We need you to be with us in the movement somehow, some way. Whatever you have to contribute, we need it. We need.
And by the way, guys, part of the reason I do this is we need to build this same thing on our side. This is why I do things based on doing it out with my community. I could be watching this on my own. Just sitting here watching it and then clipping stuff and putting it on Twitter. It's going to get a ton more views on Twitter than it is on here, I'll tell you that. It takes a lot of my time to come on here and watch this and break it down for you guys. I mean, honestly, I could watch this on my own much quicker and still get all the same things from it, right? Because I know exactly what I'm looking for. The reason that I do this publicly is that we need to build the same apparatus. We need to get people on board who are going out, who are educated on this stuff, who understand what's going on, who can go out into their communities and get more people to do it. I'm going to be doing a lot more presentations, a lot more public presentations that everyone can join. And I was going to do them this month. I think I'm going to push them back just because I haven't really marketed it out this way. I haven't talked about it as much as I should, but I do have more plans to do more just informational sessions, not streams where we're researching and I'm yelling at people, but actual like information sessions where we can go and reach out to newbies to say, you need to come and see this content. Okay. And I'm going to need, when I get these presentations up and running, I'm going to need all your help to market this out in your communities, post it on your Facebook, tell your friends and family about it. And once we start doing this, we need to get as many normal people involved as possible to get this information out there. Because the left is doing this. The left is doing this every single day. No one on our side is doing this because people on the right look at the left and they go, they're all paid protesters. It's all fake. They're not doing anything. Well, no, it's actually the right that's not doing anything. It's the right that's not organizing. Well, the left is out there doing this all the time. So we need to create the apparatus on our side because ain't no one else done that yet that I know of.
Need you, and it's the I want you, but the good version. Like, we need you and what you have to bring. Like, we are a party of parents and veterans and social workers and nurses and construction workers and union organizers. Like, we are people who are dedicated to doing something different.
Wow.
And building something different. And if that is you, if that describes you, we need you, which I think it describes everybody in this room, unless someone in here is like Jeff Bezos' wife or something. So there's ways you can do this. Thank you. That's right. Join. You can join. You can volunteer. You can donate. At the local level and the national level, there's the PSL Action Network. You can donate nationally. You can also donate at a local level. please just visit the table on your way out. There's like our Venmo and all kinds of books you can look around and purchase. So even if you can't give any more of your time, we understand. Give money to the people who do have the time and who are doing stuff. Because like having this kind of an event, printing things, posters for money. We need money, and turns out billionaires are not super interested in donating to the PSL.
So do you have a basket somewhere? A
Yes,
donation basket?
we
Where
sure
is it?
are. Where is our basket? We have a basket. We have a box. We will get a basket and we're going to pass it around. You can also give it to me. I will hold it.
So I'm pretty sure that the PSL National has some. So I'm pretty sure the PSL National is funded by like the CCP. Not entirely, but I'm pretty sure. I'm like 85 to 90% sure that's true. I could be wrong still, but I'm pretty sure. But what we're looking at right now is not the Party for Socialism and Liberation National. What we're looking at is a local chapter of the Party for Socialism and Liberation. And you can see they're funded by donations. They're funded by dues. They're funded by people who just like show up and throw $20 in the tip jar, right? So if it is true, as I suspect it is, that there is actually foreign influence in the Party for Socialism and Liberation National, that doesn't necessarily mean that the local chapters are getting any of that money, and we need to keep that in mind. Why did you delete my comment? Are you afraid you can't debate, so you delete comments? Bro, I have no fucking clue who you are. I didn't delete shit. Are you sure you're competent enough to know how a YouTube chat works? Because this is the first time I've seen you show up, so maybe you just weren't smart enough to understand how the chat works. And if you're not smart enough to understand how the chat works, then am I going to waste time debating you? No, because I don't think you know shit. So fucking relax. What is going on today with these ridiculous people coming into my chat?
You can join in local, current, ongoing labor actions, as was mentioned at Bigfoot Beverages, at Fran's Bakery. There's some union stuff happening on campus. Come talk to me or one of us if you want to get plugged into that. We are having a reading group of a book that is out on the table that you can see called Socialist Reconstruction.
I fucking knew it!
What could socialism even look like?
I fucking knew they were going to... I was just telling someone about Socialist Reconstruction earlier today. Socialist Reconstruction is the book that the Party for Socialism and Liberation has written that is basically their vision for the socialist world. I knew it!
In the United States. This book is for you. It is really good. I don't just say that because I'm being genuine. It's a really good book, and it talks about like what could housing look like in the United States under socialism? What could agriculture look like? Like how could we reorganize society to make this actually work for working people? That's in that book. And we're going to be doing a discussion group about it on December 9th, Monday, 6 p.m. Yep. Great.
Yeah.
We also, many of you who are here have applied to join the PSL, and that's awesome. If you haven't, that's okay. But we will be following up. We have an attendance sheet. We'll be following up with you of whether or not you have applied already. I'm going to share some information with you over the next 3 Sundays. So starting tomorrow at 11 a.m., the PSL is hosting what we're calling a crash course, kind of like what is the party? Like what is the PSL? What are we about? A lot of what we've talked about today, but in more detail and by people who are more eloquent and better about time management than me. And they will be, for the next 3 Sundays at 11 a.m. on Zoom, they're going to be kind of doing a crash course and just talking about what is the party and different ways that you can get involved. Again, differentiation, like not everybody is necessarily wants to join. If you want to join, we want you. And there's a lot of other ways that you can support as well. So I will be texting you. So please make sure, or emailing, please make sure that your phone number or your email address is on the sheet out there if it isn't already, and I will follow up with you. One of us will follow up with you and send you that information. Also, save the date, folks. January 20th, Inauguration Day 2025. Who's excited? Not me, except me, because we are going to be having a day of action called We Fight Back in coordination with branches and other organizations all across the country. January 20th. More details to come. Come join us out in the streets. Take all of that anger, fear, despair, channel it into something that can really demonstrate publicly that we don't just, working class people in the United States don't just take hits like that. We fight back. You can also connect with the party through like Liberation News, Breakthrough News, Liberation School. The Socialist program is all
We got to go back to Liberation School. We haven't done Liberation School in a while. So Breakthrough News. So I learned this when I was compiling the Campus Insurrection Report, which you can find at decodetheleft.com/campus. Breakthrough News is a media outlet. They have a YouTube channel and they do like on the ground protest coverage. Breakthrough News is affiliated with the Party for Socialism and Liberation. I didn't know that when I first started listening to Breakthrough News, because they were doing really good leftist content around the encampments. They've done a lot of content, like they covered the Black Lives Matter protests and all that stuff. And so I didn't know that Breakthrough News was directly affiliated with the Party for Socialism and Liberation until I started looking into their funding sources, and it's all coming from the same place. And this is why I think that the Party for Socialism and Liberation National does have more funding than maybe we know about, because how are they starting an entire news agency on YouTube as like a YouTube channel? That's like a really expensive thing to do. It is not easy to make money on YouTube. Like I'm not getting rich on a YouTube channel. I'll tell you that right now. And it's like they're not getting a ton of super chats on their content or anything, which is how I make most of my money, is super chats, not through advertising. And so I'm kind of like, how are they funding this? Because it seems like an incredibly expensive operation. So just to put that out there. Patrick says, so as a conservative that's trying to learn, my exposure to the left has been primarily through the news, and they mostly have less informed than man on the street examples. So I'm trying to learn. Patrick, don't let the yelling fool you. Okay. And don't let the shitting on conservatives fool you. I actually like it when conservatives, and I do have a lot of conservatives in my audience, I like it when conservatives come to my channel to learn and they're actually genuinely interested in learning, because you have been done a great disservice by your media. You have been done a great disservice by your influencers. And it's not an insignificant number of conservatives who come and watch my content start to realize how much their media and how much their influencers have lied to them, because you will never see this stuff covered on conservative media. It will literally never be covered. And so, welcome. I'm glad you're here. I love it when people come to learn. And listen, I'm not shitting on conservatives who actually want to learn. I'm shitting on conservatives who just want to repeat their talking points like NPCs over and over and over again. And they want to come in here and be like, they don't have jobs. They're funded by George Soros. They don't have jobs. They're all paid protest. It's like, you don't know. You don't know this. It is a struggle. It is a ongoing and perpetual struggle. But we love conservatives who just want to learn and don't do that.
Excellent media resources. Continue to come to our events. We also have an Instagram page now. It took a long time, but we have it at PSL on Instagram, at PSL Eugene on Instagram. Follow us. You can also join our contact list. I think most of you are already on it, but if you aren't, please join it. I'm going to leave you finally with a final quote from Che Guevara. He said,
Che,
at the risk of seeming ridiculous, let me say that the true revolutionary is guided by a great feeling of love. It is impossible to think of a genuine revolutionary lacking this quality. This love that Che is talking about is not naive. It's not unserious. It's not acting like trying to paint revolution as something that's like gentle or pleasant or really nice, because we're all living through this. It's not nice. But this is about the love that we have for our immigrant neighbors. This is about the love that we have for the women in our lives, for the children in our lives who are going to grow up in the world that we leave them, for our LGBTQIA+ community, friends, family members. This is the love that we have for them. I've heard it said like being a revolutionary means having a heart that beats for the people. That's what it is. There's a lot of theory. There's a lot of books. You should come read them with us if you want. But ultimately, at the end of the day, that heartbeat that beats for the people is what keeps us fighting, and it's why we're going to win. So I'm going to pass it to Ian to talk about why he joined the party. But thank you for indulging.
Hi guys. I'm Ian. I won't try to keep you guys too long, but I'm just kind of want to talk about why I joined the party. I've been a member since just over a year now. I joined post October 7th, and I'm just gonna give a little debrief on my background, which I think is a bit unique for the party. So I was born in 2005. And yeah, I don't know. People think that's weird.
It is weird.
Right in the middle of.
I graduated from college in 2003. Fuck this young kid. Fuck him. Fuck him. He's too young.
Of this, Iraq war thing that was going on. My father served in the military as a doctor. And he was deployed there 2 times. Once almost missing my birth, also another time missing a big chunk of my child life. So already it kind of directly impacted me. And from his time there, doing surgery on all these Iraqi children and civilians that our government directly hurt, it really changed their beliefs, my parents' beliefs, on what's right for the country. At first they were Republicans, but after this they moved over to what they thought was a more humanitarian side, which was Obama and the Democrats. And I see why they did that. Sadly, that wasn't true. Obama and the Democrats, and they continue to do so, carry out large-scale attacks on people in developing areas all across the globe. Nothing really changed. The Iraq war still went on with Obama.
Socialists don't like Obama? Wow.
Was a president, and it continued. And, the Afghanistan war continued to go on until just a few years ago. So from this, I was already in this mindset that oppression is bad, war is bad. If you have to kill people for oil or any type of resource, that's bad, and we shouldn't be doing that. I think that makes sense. And on top of that, our tax dollars that we expect to go into things that directly benefit us are going to killing innocent people in Iraq, Afghanistan, Gaza, or all around the world. So through this, I was still optimistic about the Democratic Party, especially with one man named Bernie Sanders, who I'm sure many of you have heard about, and just like me, really liked what he was talking about. It was a more populist, more anti-war message that really resonated with a lot of people, including me. I was 11, so it resonated with me. I was a weirdly political kid, but if it resonated with me,
fuck this guy.
That's a good thing. And of course, I was very sad when they decided to pick Hillary, who ended up not being a very good choice. I mean, we can look on that in hindsight. Just didn't connect with people, and a lot of people wanted Bernie, and the Democratic Party chose to overlook that. So you can imagine I was excited when Bernie decided to run again. And
they couldn't have done the second time, right?
Yeah, come on, right? Like, come on.
They're gonna nail it this time. They're gonna nail it this time.
Right?
You got it.
Wait for it. Joe Biden. So, and while they did win against Trump, which we don't like Trump here. I hope you guys all don't even. So that's one thing. It really hurt my soul to see that the Democratic Party wasn't putting the working people into account. It was these people who they thought would appeal to the center. But that really hasn't happened.
There's a conservative coping pixel propaganda over on Rumble saying he didn't know what politics was when he was 11. How does he know that he didn't like Obama? Is he 11 now? He's not 11 now. He looks like an adult now to me. So he still doesn't like Obama. I know this is like dropping the birthday cake of conservatives to say, No, socialists and communists actually don't like Obama because Obama bombed the shit out of people, and many socialists and communists are vehemently anti-war, which is part of the issue that they have with Israel in the fucking first place. I know this, it seems like I'm killing your pet or kicking a puppy or something like that, but you guys have got to start realizing that every single thing, oh, now Pixel Propaganda has called me a cunt. How do you think that's going to go? You think that Pixel Propaganda isn't a coping little fucking conservative bitch right now over on Rumble, whining and crying because he found out that Santa Claus wasn't real and that communists and socialists never liked Obama? Well, guess what, Pixel Propaganda? You're banned permanently from the channel. Goodbye. Go cry somewhere else. Go cry to your Fox News friends.
We haven't really appealed to the center. You know, the center always talks about how. Yeah, exactly. It didn't do anything. They cared more about moderates. They cared more about people like Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney's endorsement. No, yeah. I did not. Yeah, when I see that, I don't see, you know, what people thought the Democratic Party was. It was a party that was supposed to be anti-war. It's not. Now, in 2020, there's the pandemic going on. We're trying to get through, you know, these 4 years of Trump, hoping that, you know, he never runs again. That, you know, of course, that didn't happen. I see on the ballot, on my parents' ballot, I couldn't vote yet, by the way. I see someone named Gloria La Riva from the Party for Socialism and Liberation. Now, this was new because I had only heard about, I think, the Green Party, the Libertarian Party, and maybe like the Tea Party. And they had all had this reputation of just not really, you know, people thought they just didn't do too much. I hadn't heard of PSL though. And I thought it was very new to see a socialist party, you know, participating in electoralism. You know, through this, I did my research. I found that, you know, the policies and what the PSL was advocating for really does align with what I believe. And I think it really advocates for the working people, something that we haven't had in a long, long time. We haven't had politicians or just people overall who are willing to actually do something about the pain that we all suffer. Throughout this, you know, the BLM protests happened. I got involved with those. And then I went off to college. I'm from Washington State, came down to Oregon, and not long after what happened in Gaza happened. And just the amount of people killed and how, the university wasn't willing to show any empathy or sorrow towards all those, you know, at least 40,000 people who were killed. And I decided, you know what, let's join the PSL because they're the only ones who are saying free Palestine. Mm-hmm. That's exactly what I did. And through that, I've been able to channel this anger, this pain that I've felt inside of me for the past 8 years, and it's probably going to be 12, maybe even more than that. I've been able to channel that into something tangible, something that helps other people, something that makes a difference. You know, me scrolling on Twitter, I'm calling it Twitter, me scrolling on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram and arguing with random accounts, or, you know, just watching CNN and just getting really pissed off at whatever new headline comes up, it just wasn't productive. Joining the PSL, you know, working with people who also have this caring for their fellow person, for their fellow human being, it's really allowed me.
Hey, $16.80? What does that mean? What is this code for? Why are you making me do math? Great fucking math struggle of 2025. Thanks, Alex. I appreciate you and your oddly numbered super chat. Yeah, not. Thank you. Thank you.
To take the next step and do something about this anger. We all have this anger in here. We're all pissed. We're all pissed that our fellow Americans would vote for someone who is so destructive to this American way of life and to our children
and to our siblings and to our families. I say that with this anger, we can make a huge difference. If we channel this anger into unionizing, into working with other people, I mean, sky's the limit. We can't do things by ourselves. That's not how our society works. As Cameron said, you know, we're naturally a communal people. We work with each other. That's why we're all here. You know, we're social. We like to be around people. Some more than others. That's, you know. And we should be channeling it through that. We should be working with other people who have strengths that maybe we don't have. Because with all these different strengths, we're able to actually form one giant person, I guess. One giant person who's like a superhero, essentially. We need to work together. We need to play off each other's strengths. We need to understand that just one vote or, you know, just screaming at some MAGA person about tariffs just is not going to do anything. It surely hasn't changed anything for me. I haven't seen, Trump just got reelected and I've sent thousands of replies to people. It didn't help. So what I'm saying to you guys is that if you feel this anger, you feel this rage, you feel this sadness, try organizing, try volunteering, try donating, try putting your feelings and your effort and your time into something that other people also feel the same about. Yeah, that's right.
Amen.
Well, I would say that's the end of the program that we had prepared, and we still have the room for like 15 minutes. We told them we were going to be cleaning up during that time.
Q&A.
They don't need to know. And this is a child preschool room, so they probably don't have cameras. That's wrong.
Not under socialism,
So I guess, yeah, I'd like to open it up for a few
Wait,
questions for those that are
did you hear that? Did you hear that? Yeah, they're meeting at a school, but like they're talking about how this is the child preschool room, and so they probably don't have cameras in the preschool room. And then this bitch was like, under socialism, we'll have the cameras. Did you fucking hear that? Listen.
Well, I would say that's the end of the program that we had prepared, and we still have the room for like 15 minutes. We told them we were going to be cleaning up during that time.
They don't.
They don't need to know. And this is a child preschool room, so they probably don't have cameras. That's wrong.
Not under socialism,
So I guess, yeah, I'd like to open it up for a few questions for those that are interested. I'll probably just take a few questions and then point to some people to start answering them, but we'll collect a few. Yeah.
So in less than 3 months here, Trump is in office. What are some action items we're going to take to protect our immigrant neighbors and our transgender community and LGBTQ community as a whole?
So,
well, are we going to take?
Yeah,
We're going to
take a stack. Okay, great.
Yeah. You had your hand up as well. Yeah, go ahead.
Having worked strongly in 2016 and 2020 for Bernie Sanders and cable, I saw a lot of young people in middle school and high school that wanted copies of the policies and the issues to take to their parents. And at that time, I said, justice is in the DNA of the young. And I saw a lot of that tonight. So as an old person, having worked hard for both of those campaigns, you've warmed my heart greatly. I see lots of talent, lots of good minds, lots of good passion. So thank you.
I'm glad to hear that.
And I strongly believe we need an organization, not movements. And one of the things I like about this is learning about your organization. And I've also heard talk about uniting with other organizations. And I strongly think that's the power that we need. And that labor has to probably lead this. So I hear that you're open to that, and I encourage it.
Anybody else want to throw a question on Stack before we start?
Stack.
Yep. Todd?
During this year, there were a number of remarkable speeches in which, pinkwashing was one of them. I can't remember all off the top of my head. A point was made that this movement, it was in a Palestinian or labor, or gay rights, or black people, and they would step back, and at some point they would say our movements are actually part of a larger thing happening. And I would love to hear somebody articulate more about that.
Okay.
I can't tell if something that is, but I think I understand, but it's been confusing to me, and I don't know if it is to other people, but I think, and this came up, maybe Cameron, when you were talking about the state, and the state is a problem, and how the state is, and Kelly, also you, not serving the people, but it's serving, for example, oil interests or, oligarch interests.
Millionaires and millionaires.
I can find it fundamentally confusing that we have an apparatus, the state, which is peopled on a rotating basis, whether it's every 4 years or on a staggered basis of rotation. And so it feels a bit diffuse to me, unlike a monarchy where we can see, okay, this is the power, right? It's more diffuse when we have a rotating basis, and it boggles my mind when I think, my gosh, like Mayor Vinnie's, it's hard for me to think of her as evil, and yet she does truly, truly evil things, that have been truly murderous, right? When I said, she sort of, defends the police murdering people that the police have murdered here, and the sweeps, etc. You could go on, but it's hard for me to accept that she is serving these interests that are so far from her own interests, I think, even, right? And, I don't think Mayor Vinnie's is like benefiting from the oil companies becoming so rich, right? And yet she is serving in line with those interests. And so I point to Mayor Vinnie's to just point to all levels of government, right? We can see that Trump is aligned with, what's his fuck name? Elon Musk, right? So we can see that connection pretty, that's fairly apparent. But I guess my question is like, how either do we make sure we, myself included, I want to be educated, understand how it can be that these, state operatives are serving even against their own interests so much of the time, and then how do we raise consciousness so that people because I feel like it's much more difficult than, say, fighting a monarchy, where it's not so diffuse and it's not this elusive rotating thing. So that's my question.
So the question is how to raise consciousness.
And then we'll start answering.
No, this will be quick. I totally support socialism, but it is an economic movement. And a lot of our problems are governmentally based, not rooted in the economy. I think she pointed that out very, very well. And I know Rob will argue with me, but I will say both the Soviet Union and China failed. And in my opinion,
the Democrat
reason
right
they
there.
failed was not socialism. The reason they failed was the governmental structure.
That's a Democrat.
And unless we have a governmental structure and talk about how fundamentally we can change, is one of the things I like best about Bernie. Get rid of Citizens United, get rid of money in the equation. I go way beyond where Bernie went, but that's, money doesn't belong in our government, period. It does not belong influencing things. You should not have to be rich to run. And if we do not incorporate that in our message, if we're just talking socialism, even if we succeed, like the Soviet Union, like China, we will fail. And that's all I've got to say, and you can answer that, but that's my
We'll do what we can.
We have
Okay,
9.
so to the first question, in the immediate aftermath of the election, the National Party hosted a big event in New York at the People's Forum, and one of the speakers at that event is a labor leader amongst like the undocumented labor movement, and he announced that they as leaders, and this is as part of a partnership now with the PSL, is the formation of like popular committees, basically, to defend undocumented people and from organizations like ICE. One of our leaders, Eugene Prior, specifically mentioned the example in American history of abolitionists like being outside.
Eugene is a host on Breakthrough News. I wouldn't have thought that Eugene was a leader in the Party for Socialism and Liberation, but that's interesting.
Of courthouses in the North who were extraditing slaves back to the South and preventing that from happening. So that is something that the party now is organizing with undocumented labor, with our communities effectively. It's on us to defend those people. And that's what we're going to do. Well, you know, if this is something that we have to face down, like, we won't shy away from that, because our trans brothers and sisters, our undocumented brothers and sisters, are essential elements of our class and of our communities, and so we're going to build the organizations that we need to fight back.
Are you talking about things like Black Panther, like neighborhood watch parties, or like what do you?
So in this particular case, what they were talking about is like, yeah, the formation of like these. It's still in progress in communication with these sort of undocumented and migrant worker sort of organizations. But yeah, it's everything from, you know, it's legal protections, it's creating, yeah, these organizations to do what's necessary to prevent like attacks on our community, basically.
Yeah, and I think another piece of that is that like we are not sitting back here deciding like, oh, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, right? There are people in those communities that we are in coalition with, to this other point of like working together, even outside of our organization, that have a lot of those ideas, have a lot more experience than Ian.
Yeah.
No shade.
That's true.
Right? And so it's not about like us coming up with an idea and saying we're gonna do this. I think it's about working with everyone who is involved in that movement and who cares about that, which includes you, right? Like getting plugged into organizations that are considering that question and deciding what they are going to do in real time and as it develops. Right, and this is like another piece of this movement is how much we can't just say what it's going to be. All we can do is unite with people who have those values and decide together. We need everyone's talent and everyone's input and everyone's creativity about what that's going to look like. And so like the specific answer as such, like, are we going to have a, you know, just gonna go attack Mayor Venice's house or whatever it is.
We're not gonna do that. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I would speak a little bit to this question back about like how to talk to people about the state as we see it, which are these people who are representatives of it. And one of the really interesting things you said is you brought up Elon Musk, and it's so true that
this is the donation basket.
like it's so true that so much of not being mystified about who these representatives of the state are is about the fact that they're not the billionaires, right? There are the billionaires, and they actually control the things by money mostly, not by like mustache twiddling in a room and then like flipping a switch here and then Joe Biden goes like, although that, you know, that could happen. But anyway, right? But they make the decisions in the back room and then manifest that via, you know, the Heritage Foundation, via donations here. And then once it comes to actually the state actors, they seem to be independent and seem to be just kind of doing the thing that, you know, treating everyone equally and where everybody is mayor, everybody is president, right? But the decisions always turn out one way. And that's because there is this like disconnect between the two. And I think, and someone mentioned, I think it was on the Socialist program this week, one of our comrades, it's like a podcast anyway. You're welcome to check it out, support it by all means. But it's almost like a mistake, you know, to bring in someone like Elon Musk, who's working with Vivek Ramaswamy, if I remember, another billionaire, tech billionaire, in this, and Trump himself is an example of this, where it's actually the billionaires themselves in those positions actually making those decisions.
Yeah.
Because now if the Department of Government Efficiency or whatever the fuck, right, like decides, oh, we're gonna do this, then it's like really obvious who that's supposed to benefit, and why that decision was made. And so I think that that's actually a really good example of how they're like now bleeding into the actual structure of how to point that out with the relatively limited amount of time. There's a lot we could say about bases and superstructures and whether socialism is an economic system
or cultural model,
a political economy, which includes like the economy and everything which is built, upon that.
Culture.
Those things exist in some sort of a relationship.
Something
like
a cultural model.
Something, yeah. I haven't heard that word. But never heard of that. Never heard of that. But I don't know. Does anyone? Ian?
I mean, I'd like to kind of speak on, you talked about coalitions. I've had a few people talk to me about they feel this need that coalitions can really help benefit us, and I completely agree. That's been something I've tried to kind of work on, and not to the point of where we lose our principles, but to the point of where we're able to foster these other relations with people who are genuinely our allies. Because if we ostracize people who maybe we disagree with a few things on, well, who else do we have? We don't have the ruling class. Elon Musk is not going to come in here and give us $100 or $1 million like he did to people who vote for Trump. We've got each other, and really a big part of organizing is finding common ground with people who want to change. People who want the status quo over. And with part of PSL is it's not just about improving ourselves and improving our own party. It's about uplifting other voices and and uplifting other people so everyone around us is strong.
Hey, is the CIAC working good? This Springfield, Eugene,
Anti-imperialist coalition.
Coalition.
Yeah, that's right. That's a coalition we participate in. Yeah, on the local level, and nationally, our party participates in many coalitions of organizations, like-minded organizations. I think the only question that wasn't directly addressed maybe was Todd's, and that was about how all of these different struggles are connected. And I think again, you have to think about who benefits from people thinking we have to fight climate change, and we have to fight housing injustice, and we have to fight for women's rights, and we have to fight for Black people to stop being murdered by the police. And these are all different. They're just random, weird. It's weird that these are all different movements. They benefit from that. It's this divide and conquer. It's the same kind of strategy of having a conservative and a more liberal faces of the ruling classes, because then we're fighting each other. We're either fighting each other or we're coming up with reasons why it's the red billionaires that are the problem instead of the blue billionaires, or the blue billionaires are the problem, not the red billionaires. It keeps us from seeing the system for what it really is. It's that quote that I shared from Claudia of Trump is a symptom. Trump is not in and of himself a problem, even though he's deeply problematic. He is not the issue. He is a manifestation. A system that would allow for Trump to become president is a really bad system. And that is the problem. And that system is responsible for children in cages at the border, for climate catastrophe, for endless war, for the taking away of hard-fought labor wins and wins for women and other people. This is one system that is responsible for all of these different things. And so in order to actively fight for those things, we have to fight the system. Okay, that's all.
Yeah, and to that point, maybe just
what system are they fighting again? What system is the system that allowed Trump to become president? What system is the system that created climate change? What system is the system that creates all of the problems that they think they will solve by overthrowing the system? Does anyone remember? Yeah, it's capitalism. Yup. See. Now you see. You know what? Welcome back, Ben. Ben is back. Ben got yelled at. Ben went through the hazing ritual that is required on this channel when people just aren't getting it yet, and you stuck around. So congratulations for sticking around. I love it when I yell at people and they stick around and they continue to listen and they learn. Because I'm not doing it because I dislike you. I'm doing it because I want you to fucking listen. And sometimes you idiots need to get stinged upside the head in order to listen. But welcome back, Ben. Welcome back. Now you see. And now it's all coming together.
Out after the first Trump assassination attempt. Weird sentence. The party published a statement about it and how it's like likely to, you know, blah blah blah, whatever. It was a great statement. I didn't mean blah 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 like that, or like. I just mean that's not the point I wanted to make. Is that they talked about polarization and how the country was likely to become more polarized around this red-blue divide, and it addressed this question of polarization in a way that really spoke to me, who always thought like polarization, that doesn't seem bad. Like if there's someone who wants to kill me and there's me, then like I want to be polarized with that person. Polarization itself seems okay. So the line was that, you know, the issue is not that we're polarized, but that we're polarized on the wrong basis.
That's right.
You know, that we're polarized on this, not we, of course, everyone here is great, but generally speaking, polarized on this red-blue divide, except for the non-voters, 40% of the country, pretty large actually, rather than, you know, the working class against the, you know, 12 people who ruin all our lives. So anyway, thank you.
Join us tomorrow, 11 a.m. Zoom call. Learn more about the kids.
All right. Hey, we made it. That was a 2-hour presentation, guys. Congratulations to the 68 of you on YouTube who made it until the very end. We actually had a good group watching for a while there. I was actually really excited. I was like, holy shit, people are coming out to watch Socialism on a Thursday? Maybe we should do this all the time. Oh, wait, we do already do it all the time. But for those warriors who made it to the very end, you have done the Lord's work today. That was a long-ass presentation, but there was a lot in there, and I feel like that was really good. And thank you for everyone who sent almost $200 in super chats today. I appreciate you guys for that. As a reminder, you guys do allow me to do what I do when you send in super chats, or otherwise give me money over on my Substack, Karlyn, KARLYN.substack.com, because my ability to find all these cool presentations for you guys, to spend time breaking them down, to writing about them on the Substack, to making clips and things, that depends on you guys giving me the ability to do this. And I will dedicate all of my time and a large portion of my sanity to doing this as long as you guys show up for me. That's the deal. You show up for me in the form of super chats and memberships on the website and other forms of donations and support, and maybe you help volunteer in the community, and you help research, and you help spread the word about what we're doing, and you share stuff on social media, and you retweet my stuff, and you go into the replies of influencers and you go, why the fuck aren't you listening to her, asshole? Because a lot of them blocked me for doing exactly that. So I can't do it anymore. So I have to send you guys in my stead to go, why aren't you watching these clips and listening? Suzanne puts us over the $200 mark. Thank you, Suzanne, for that. You guys show up for me, I'll show up for you. All right? That's the way this works. We are a team. And I can only do this by your consent. So even though I yell at you sometimes, and even though it pisses you off when I yell at you, just know it's for your own good. And be like Ben and admit that you were wrong, and then still continue to listen. And it'll all be cool. All right, guys, that is all we have for today. I'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. for happy hour, and we'll be drinking some beer, and we'll be doing something. I don't know exactly what we're doing yet, but we're going to be doing something fun for happy hour tomorrow because, you know, it is Thursday, right? It is Thursday. Wait, it's Thursday, right? Tomorrow is actually Friday, right? Am I hallucinating? Can someone just please confirm in the chat tomorrow is Friday? Yes, thank you. I actually had a moment just then where I thought it was Wednesday. And I was like, oh no! Oh no! Brian, I've got a whole other day until it's Friday tomorrow. Okay. Alright, we're back. We're back. Okay. Alright, I'm gonna go get beer tomorrow, and I will see you guys for the stream on tomorrow, and we'll do something fun. Take care, guys. We'll see you soon. Bye.
How are you feeling? Well. How long have you been here? 3 months, May 17th. And what brought you here? That's difficult to answer. Eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital. That's difficult to answer.